Thank you. That's better judgment. Was this me or is somebody in here? I don't know. I don't know how to stream on YouTube, unfortunately. That was a weird edit. Set something up on my phone. Start at 7:30. I'm just finishing up setting up. I feel like it's easiest if you send the requests to my Twitter. My DMs are open. My Twitter is at KingHRMEYER. In which case... If it doesn't work, I can always just do it through the chats, I guess. I don't know. Also, don't be afraid to, say anything while I can't really see the screen as well for chats. I'm probably going to have my phone open to the stream, which will hopefully be easier to look at the chat. Of course you did the best of Markiplier makes. Yeah, that has to be there. I'm just gonna start the setup episode. Let's see the sounds. Should probably have this in the middle. Then my microphone. There we go. And then when somebody comes in, they can tell me if it's too much.
Take us out, Captain.
Let's go.
Roll for initiative.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Roll your balls.
Hello.
That's a reference that only people who I think went to the Pub and Family Fun Center in Huntington, West Virginia will get.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to the first episode of the Adventure Zone Dust.
I can taste it. I can taste the dust in my mouth.
Dust.
Oh, God.
It's a double entendre, because one is taking place in the dusty
I play
old
Columbia.
West,
Why do
but
I not know what
two,
her
in the
tailcoat
context of
looks like?
ashes to ashes and dust to dust, it begins with a murder.
Dun, dun, dun.
I love this part of any fiction. My favorite part is the first paragraph of The Stand, when Stephen King's like, this book is called The Stand because later in the book, some good people will take a stand against bad people.
Get it?
Get it? Anyway, on with the story.
This is how the prologue of every good story begins. Let me tell you why I picked this title. Hi, I'm Travis. So this
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. There were two cities, and this is the story of them and how they did their thing.
This is their tale.
All right, if we're done with all the fun and games, let's
There's a
play
little
some
orphan
games.
later in the story. He shows up soon. His name is Oliver Twist, and this book is about him.
You're
being
going
poor.
to love him.
You're going to love his
He's
whole
a real
thing.
rascal.
He's a rascal.
And he doesn't believe in Christmas.
Mhm.
Wait,
Okay.
Oliver Twist doesn't believe in Christmas?
Yeah, it's all part of the same
What?
universe.
So Oliver Twist grows up to be Ebenezer Scrooge?
Yes, absolutely. Travis, will you please tell us about the adventure?
Yes. So,
No
to
puffs.
start off with, a little more background. So originally,
Two
I talked
buttons.
about creating my
No
own
puffs.
game system for this, and
Tails.
then what I learned was
Tails.
that's really fucking hard. There are people who work for years and years and years, and they only do the one thing, and still then they play test it for years and years after that.
I
So-
wanted to believe in you and nurture that flame, but there was an element of hubris. You saying, "Yeah, I'll just make my own." It's like, but this is it's an extremely hard thing.
Well, because then I started to think, like, well, what if they want to do this? And I was like, man, I don't know. And so instead, I set out to look for a game system pre-existing. And I really, really like the Powered by the Apocalypse Monster of the Week that we've been doing for Amnesty. And so at first, I started off thinking about that. But then the problem was Monster of the Week, as the name implies, builds to, like, fighting a big monster in each arc. And that's not really what I had in mind for this. And so I started looking for other versions of Powered by the Apocalypse. And what I found is a game system called Urban Shadows.
We should really drive home because I feel like on paper it may sound like this is going to be kind of a similar thing because Urban Shadows also has a lot of like monster centric stuff in it, but really a cursory look at the two systems and their genre and the rules and the focuses of the different game, the foci they could not be more different.
Yeah, you'll hear some of the same terms, like the same way of if you roll, a 2 to 6 or a 7 to 9 or a 10 to 12, that kind of thing, and like adding one to roll. You'll hear a lot of the same terminology, but Urban Shadows really. So originally, the one thing I knew right off the top of my head when thinking about an arc is I wanted it to be based around the interactions of vampires, werewolves, and humans, not as like monsters versus hunters, but more as like people who didn't see eye to eye and get along. and like that there was like tension between them, not like one hunts the other, but just like as they passed each other in the street, there was tension. And so what's great about Urban Shadows is that's what it is. So Urban Shadows, the driving kind of mechanic is
Yep,
factions.
that's what I figured.
And the other driving force in Urban Shadows is debt. So the way it works is if you do something for someone and both players or the MC and the player agree that that is like worthy of a debt, that person then owes you something that you can call in, and they either have to do it or risk taking a penalty if they refuse to honor the debt.
And all that stuff is tangible game mechanics. Like, these are
Yeah.
numerical values that you add to, like, critical rolls.
So it's so much more about the interpersonal interactions and connections than it is about fighting. And on top of that, what I really love is that unlike D&D and I would also say Fate and Monster of the Week, this is really kind of ready for player versus player disagreements and conflict. So like you don't have to get along, and in fact the start of about like not necessarily getting along, you can still all be working towards the same goal and still work together, but the idea that just like you're inherently friends because you work together is just not really the way it always worked. And so I just love, I think the interactions, the mechanics, but also like the characters and the setup feels very different to me than any of the arcs we played so far. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Here's what I want. This is not, as Griffin pointed out to me the other day, my goal here is not to be grimdark. My goal, it's not like everybody's so super broody
And
and
I just gotta do the
nasty to each other
shoes
and filled with hate.
hands.
It's just more tense,
And
you know,
do not
like,
forget the
for
hand.
example,
That is important.
right? A lot of times in Balance, we would, you know,
I should
kind
probably
of
move this up
goof
here, actually.
with, like, the player characters would make a joke to an NPC that if you said to someone in real life would offend them or, like, make the conversation go pretty south pretty quickly. But we rolled with it because we were joking, right? And I think that that's going to be a little different in this because it's so about interpersonal interactions that, like, if you're trying to get information from someone and you make a joke about their, you know, the way they're dressed or
Their
something.
voice or their shiny bow tie.
Right.
Or how they waste spell slots.
That's going to be, they are then going to be less willing to give you the information.
What
that
if it's
you
a very
want.
okay? But what if it's a very funny joke?
Well, then
you wanna
that's
do
the
it very
thing.
much.
I'm not saying you can't joke. I just think that use it as a resource.
is
You know what I mean?
not-
Where
Aren't you
Stupid.
penalizing me for trying to make our comedy podcast funnier? Then
yes,
okay, good.
that's what the,
Folks, these arcs are limited.
You know
do
what
wanna
I gotta
remind
do.
you of just a few episodes of the one that's intentionally not funny.
Well, you know, humor is different for different people. Just maybe some people will find it funny that I penalize you for making a joke. That could be fun. That would be funny to me. I will enjoy that moment. And so that's the thing. I don't want it to sound like I'm going to make this dark and no one's going to have fun. But it's more like it's just a little grittier. It's a little more westerny. You know, I don't want it to be as lighthearted, but I'm also not trying to depress everyone with this. I'm just trying to be a little bit more realistic in the interactions that y'all have with each other and with the players or with the non-playable characters. So Griffin, you've done this more times than me. What else do I need to tell people about this?
I mean, as long as we're talking about tone, we should address kind of the elephant in the room of interpreting and incorporating like real world Wild West sort of social issues, which is something that I think you've been very thoughtful of while sort of crafting this.
Yeah,
What
as far
is
as like
my
the
name
social
on YouTube?
issues and incredible, massive amounts of
That's a
racism and
question that I should
misogyny
know.
that would be present. And, you know, I saw a lot of people when I talked about doing the Old West kind of arc, and they were made uncomfortable by that concept. And you know what? So am I. And I don't mean uncomfortable like I didn't want to discuss it or that I want to pretend like it didn't happen, but more so is that I've seen from a lot of people that this show is an escape for them. And
we
I mean,
we
we're
try our best to like want to be interacting with racist and misogynist NPCs, and I don't think that the listeners necessarily want that either.
Yeah, so this is going to be a world inspired by, designed after, but not actually the Old West. So yeah, it's not set in our world. And I think that also tracks because our world doesn't have vampires and werewolves and demons and ghosts that we know of. Okay, I'm glad we went to the same place. All right.
And another thing we talked about is not, because this is another sort of problematic trope that pops up whenever you do supernatural drama stuff like this, is treating relations between different supernatural things like vampires and werewolves as an allegory or a parallel to racism, which is, I think, pretty dismissive of a very, very serious and very real problems that people deal with day to day. And that
Absolutely.
is also not like what we're doing. The way I've heard you describe it is like, this is about sort of families.
Yeah, this is way more
rivalries.
Hatfield and McCoy. This is
sure.
like the Blackwells run the copper mine, the Mathises run the silver mine. So like they're competing business interests. They both have pretty equal like areas of the town they run, and it's really, and I'll get into this when I intro it, but it's really that this town is on the decline, and so there's all this tension that just comes from that.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to like the families don't like each other, and because these families don't like each other, the factions have naturally split into the people who side with each family. So it's not necessarily like the entire race of werewolves in this world we've created and the entire race of vampires don't like each other. It is specifically these two families, you know,
Sure.
and how they interact. Because that's the thing. What I love about Urban Shadows is it gets down to like how individuals interact with each other.
And as the only one of us who was alive back during the Wild West, I think it's a good choice. A good
Yeah.
choice.
So let's talk a little bit more about the world, both of Urban Shadows and specifically the town of Dry River, which is where we were playing. So
Now, how does a river get dry?
Well, we'll talk about that in the course
okay.
of the show. And so Dry River is in the Crescent territory, originally the Crescent River, now the Crescent Ravine. And so it's this kind of unincorporated territory. And so one of the things about Urban Shadows is you're dealing with kind of power struggles, and in it's kind of originally Urban Shadows is kind of built to be in like a big city. And in fact, the book encourages you, like, you can use real cities if you want, or create your own. So you can set it in, like, Chicago, or you can create your own world.
I mean, it's called Urban Shadows.
Yes.
It's not called rural, old-timey shadows.
Right. And so rather than just have kind of this individual town of, like, 1,000 people, I've created a territory, think more of, like, a state. So all of them are very connected. So there's, like, mining interests and criminal organizations that kind of thrive in this unincorporated territory. So rather than thinking like city, I'm thinking of it more as like a territory. And I worked with Brendan from Magpie Games, who makes Urban Shadows, to kind of make sure I wasn't breaking the system at all with this. And so like we talked about connecting these and making sure there were still these power systems of like the workers versus the mining owners, the criminal organizations versus some kind of law-keeping body. And so making sure that there was still something to push against for all these different people and factions and that kind of thing. Because otherwise it's just chaos, and that's not as interesting. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about characters and what they mean. So a lot of the archetypes you'll see is the same in like, listen, as I flip through my giant RPG binder, you'll see a lot of the same kind of archetypes as there are in D&D and Monster of the Week and even some similar ones in Fate. do you boys want to tell me about your characters, or do you want me to go through night, power, and wild? And so mortality is like your human hunters, or your aware. So aware is like they know something's going on, but they don't have any inherent skills. So they're kind of your like, they keep their eyes open. They can tell you about stuff they saw. They're well researched, but without any like inherent
So get
fighting
used to
abilities. So
that.
you have like your aware, hunter, veteran, mortals, right? And then in your night, that's where you get your vampires, your werewolves. And then in your power, that is someone who has taken on power. So like an oracle or a wizard. And then in wild, that's where you get like your tainted, who are in league with demons, or fae, who are these like, the fairy creatures. And so if you're in those factions, you inherently get along better. So another interesting thing about Urban Shadows that makes it really great for storytelling is it gives you a lot of the big points, like this is a vampire, this is what they can do. This is a werewolf, this is what they can do. This is someone who's tainted with demon, this is what they can do. But as far as the like supernatural lore, it leaves a lot of room to fill in, right? So for our story, vampirism and like lycanthropy are hereditary. And so they are vampire families and werewolf families. And it's not about being turned, it is genetic. So like
Turn somebody, or is that just like not how it works?
I think that it's not how it works unless, you know what I mean? Because when we're talking about, there are wizards, there are fey creatures, there are demons. I don't want to rule anything out because the
Most of
possibility
them were born into it, is what you're saying.
yeah, but
Okay.
that genetic mutation had to start somewhere. You know what I mean?
I dig
So
it.
yeah.
Dracula. Let's start with Dracula.
It had to start with Dracula. So and a lot of that also, that's about the only decision I've made. And then past that, when we're creating characters, I'm probably going to ask you questions like, so how does it work as far as this? And you will help fill in, as the creator of these characters, help fill in the supernatural lore as we go. So, I think we've danced around it long enough.
I think so.
Why don't we start? Justin, do you want to tell me about your character?
Sure. I'd love to, Trav.
Then please do.
Well, then I will.
Okay,
Here it comes.
Fine, do it. Coward.
Okay, Justin, your turn.
What's wrong, baby? You scared like a baby?
My turn is starting now. I am playing, it seems predetermined considering our lives to this point. I'm playing a ghost, whose name is Augustus Parsons. Now, did I realize when I picked the name Augustus that it sounds like a ghost? I did not.
Okay, I did not put that together. Thank you so much.
A ghost us. That'll be the name of your clothing line.
That is where we find ourselves. He is was the boss, the chief executive officer of the Augustus Parsons Cashew Company. And
How does
he
one
was,
draw
an
shoes?
industrial magnate
That is the question of my
who,
life.
died through mysterious circumstances, and he is trapped here on Earth. And he was not a good person. He was a bad person, as many wealthy industrialists are, I guess, just like all of us. There's good and bad. But he is trapped here on Earth, and the way Travis and I talked about it is that this sort of agency or what have you that we are a part of, he is bound into service to them to make up for the wickedness that he did during his life.
Now, as far as that goes, J-Man, is it like once he's ticked enough boxes, or is it just like when there is no predetermined?
What's that fucking show you guys reference all the time that nobody's ever watched? The 99 Deeds of what's his face?
That looks okay.
Oh, yeah, where he had to save 100 souls or 99
That looks
souls.
alright.
100 Lives of Blackjack Savage, my friends.
Yeah.
100 Lives of Blackjack Savage.
You
the
could also relate it to Cupid with Paramage Jivens, where Paramage Jivens had to get 100 couples together.
Let's not make that the anchor.
Okay, we'll stick with 100
So
Lives
anyway-
of Blackjack Savage.
Yeah, it's much more relatable.
It's nothing finite because I think that would imply that he could somehow balance
Mhm.
like what he did in his mortal life. I think that the deal is much more ephemeral than that. He assumes that he will be released at some point, but he doesn't have like a meter,
I can't wait to hear.
salvation meter.
I can't wait to hear what kind of sins that really hard-nosed cashew business requires for folks to get ahead.
You wouldn't believe it. It's nuts.
Oh, Jesus.
See, there's still
God.
jokes.
Yeah, there's still going to be jokes, and it's all going to be sort of nut cashew-based humor.
The main reason that when you create a character, a Spectre, there's questions you need to answer. Who are you? Check. Who do you still love? I still love my cashew company. And that is something that I'm still very preoccupied with.
I don't like that.
I'm thinking a lot about how the business is being run. And I'm like trying to keep an eye on the business while I also
Just don't go in that
slam
route.
evil, as the Phantom once instructed us
Oh
to do.
man, it's like Undercover Boss.
It's a lot like Undercover Boss.
If
Invisible
the cover he's
Invisible
under is a
Boss.
bed sheet with eye holes cut out.
Yeah, Invisible Boss, and he also has a daughter. He was not a. This will come as a shock. He was not a great father in his life.
How
His
does one
name- His
choose?
daughter's name is
How does
Anna
one choose
Cardium
at all?
Parsons, and she is in the care of Travis. What would you? Sorry, you texted me the church. Sorry, in the care of the church. So he can't necessarily. I think that like it is unpleasant for him to sort of check up on her. That being a church and it being like a lot of, it's sort of like a weird vibe for a ghost. I think to hang out in. So
Except for the Holy Ghost.
yes,
Okay.
the Holy Ghost and Jesus Christ, of course, are permitted within the church.
The church is like the church body. You know what I mean? So it's not like a specific building, but more of like the governing church body in this unincorporated territory is the church, right? So someone works for the church. You know what I mean? Think that kind of thing rather than, oh, I'm going to go to the church. It's, he works for the church, right?
And also, yes, and also because they are providing for the welfare of his daughter, he owes them 2 debts. So I don't know, Trav, if you want to think of that as like a certain person in the church that he owes 2 debts to, or just the entity itself. I don't know what makes the best fit.
I would say that for the purposes of this territory spread out, that it is the entity of the church. You owe 2 debts. You know what I mean? That it's
Yeah.
like the church can call in, and maybe they call in so the organization that you all 3 are agents of is, I'm calling it the Grayson Agency, and it's very much like the Pinkertons. If anyone's familiar with that, where they are kind of detectives / arbiters.
I had to go
/
out and get
muscle
my
for hire.
shoes,
They are not
but
necessarily a law-keeping. They are not. Not even necessarily. They are not a law.
I'm too lazy for that.
Law-keeping organization.
it's in my
It
car.
is bodyguards or whatever
In my
you need.
suitcase.
And so you
Also,
are
I'd
all
probably
agents
lose
of
them
that.
if
So
I took
maybe
them
it's
out of my
like the
suitcase,
church could
so-
call in the debt with the Grayson Agency to have you investigate something, or the church, a member of a representative of the church
Hello.
could specifically call in that favor from you. And I have named some organizations and people after listener. The Grayson Agency is named after Grayson Berg. Not any, because some people I wanted to leave the option that maybe they are bad villain type people, and I didn't want to name bad villain type people. after our
You
nice
referenced
listeners.
the Pinkertons, and we should probably clear up that we're not going to be doing any union busting in this game. I think that also.
If you have
goes
any
against the
requests, put it
ethos
in
of what
the
we're
chat
going for.
box. I
No,
have it open
no
on my
union
phone
breaking.
so I can look at
Cool.
it.
So
I hate that.
Justin,
I hate
couple
this.
other
I hate
questions
that.
go along with the character creation. How
There we
long
go.
have you been in the territory and with the Graysons?
5 years I've been. I mean, the cashew company's in the territory, so I've been in the
Also,
territory.
if the
my whole life.
podcast
It's
is
old money.
too loud versus my
But
mic,
I
let me
have been
know.
dead, I think 5 years
Okay.
sounds about right. So I've been with the Graysons 5 years.
So then, how old is Anna?
She is 12. He's a bad
Hate
father,
that.
yeah, and that doesn't magically get fixed
Yeah.
because he's a ghost.
Well, let's face it,
who's-
cashews are easy to love.
Cashews are easy to love. So delicious.
Is there a movie about a ghost that's trying to be a good ghost dad? So he's not a ghost
Jack
dad.
Jack
He's-
Frost.
Jack Frost.
There
Thank you.
might
That's
be a
another.
lot of movies about it.
And
The
actually,
Shining. The Shining.
In
Well-
both those examples, except for The Shining, it does magically turn you into a good dad.
Okay, so this isn't a ghost dad scenario.
Yeah.
In many senses of the word.
Who is your closest confidant in the territory?
So I don't really. I haven't really thought that way because I've kind of seen him as somebody who's kind of apart from it.
Well, can I make a suggestion just from what
yeah,
you've given me
please.
so far? Is who took over the cashew company that Augustus is maybe most in contact with as far as like so confidant? I think for Augustus maybe doesn't mean tells their deepest darkest secrets, but maybe the person that they still feel most connected to, and that they interact with the most. So was there somebody who took over the cashew
I'm gonna have to
company
look
when
up what
Augustus
character
passed?
shoes look like.
Yes, Garrett Altizer, and he hates his guts. He thinks he's an absolute nincompoop. If he had known he was going to die, he would have created some sort of succession plan to some of the more competent people. But Garrett Altizer is the one who sort of like ascended to running it, and he is the main person that he is haunting, because to try to make him
They
do a better
are
job.
Was Garrett
farther
kind of like
up.
a yes man that Augustus kept around?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, exactly. Garrett is sort of
Oh.
not unlike a Smithers
Uh-huh.
type.
I'm a big
But he
dumb.
does not.
Alright.
Except that Smithers, I think, would do a very competent job. And maybe Garrett Altizer is doing a competent job, but in the views of Augustus, he is incompetent.
Last question, and then we'll talk about like the moves that Augustus gets. But last question: what
Oh yeah, he's got lots of cool moves.
What do you desperately need?
What I desperately need is to return to my corporeal form and take control of my cashew company. But barring that, I guess release from my spectral prison, so at least I don't have to see Altizer run my precious jewel of a company into the ground.
So, who wants to go next?
You don't want to talk
Wait,
about
Oh,
his
yeah,
powers?
let's talk about
You
your
know-
sick moves.
Yeah, I'll blow through it real quick because it's kind of pretty ghost-like.
And maybe tell us a
simple.
little bit about the demeanor and looks and stuff as well.
So in the character creation process, it gives you options on like your look and your demeanor for you to pick from. So I chose male and Caucasian, and that's kind of boring because that's what I am. So that's how I kind of roll. But I thought since he's like not a great dad, seemed like kind of yucky.
Sure.
To pick a different race to depict him, and also like he's an evil industrialist, which like. That's probably a white guy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
probably. I would guess.
Invert
So
that.
that's what we're going with. The demeanor here is antiquated. I think that's probably the best, like sort of
Use the
at least
scroller.
socially speaking, a gentleman.
Use the
As
buttons.
those things go. That's sort of his thing.
Everything
I think of him as like
is
he was
selected.
definitely in his like late 60s with like think like frock coat, like really dressed to the nines. He's somebody who was very put together and focused very much on his appearance, craggy,
Very
angular,
pale.
sort of dude. So that's how I sort of envision him. His cool powers are, one is he can manifest, so he can choose to be two of these: heard, seen, or can touch or be touched. I have to choose two. If I want to choose one or three, I have to take a corruption point.
Now, that's at a time, as I understand it. So this isn't like something you have to predetermine now.
No, in each situation, I have to choose which of those two I can be.
That is such a fucking cool way to do ghosts in a game.
It's really cool. The other abilities I've chosen are one is called Ghost Town. And that means I can go hang out with ghosts to try to find more information. And I feel like he finds them contemptible, but they're a useful resource from time to time. And then the other one is Wall. He always has the option to escape.
Great. And then
I can choose an additional option off the list to bring somebody with me for for that, but I think it's mainly just him being able to leave.
You also, so another cool thing about Urban Shadows is like you have your basic moves, but
By the way, last thing, if I fail that roll, that escape roll, it attracts the attention of dangerous spirits and ghosts in the area.
Yep.
Fuck yeah.
So you also have drama moves. So there's a
Johnny Drama moves.
Drama moves. There's a concept in Urban Shadows called corruption, and so basically, corruption is any time you let your character slip closer to the darker inner parts of their nature, they get a little bit more corrupted, and if they get fully corrupted,
Wait a minute, why did I
they
just select that?
retire from your control to
That's
my
part of the
control
code.
as a danger to the city.
So good.
And so if you give into the darker part of your nature, and allow corruption to happen, then
Just
I
gonna...
get to keep you.
What's awesome is that before you get to that point where your character becomes an NPC threat, you actually get more powerful.
Yep.
You get
Right.
you get new powers, because this is something that video games fuck up so much, of like the good and evil slider, where it's just like, oh yeah, are you gonna rob this person, or are you gonna help them out? Either way, you're gonna get this cool sword. And it's like, well, then it doesn't matter as much. Like BioShock did this a lot, right? Where it's like, do you want to harvest the little girl for her magic energy, or do you want to save her? No matter what, you're gonna end up getting like cool powers and stuff like that. When really, like, if you do the evil thing, there's a reason behind it, and it's because you're pursuing some sort of power in some way. And this game is like, yeah, you get more powerful and more powerful and more powerful, and then you become an enemy, and that's really cool.
Yeah, he gets like the ability to possess people and stuff like that. The more corrupt, he's gonna go pretty corrupt pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's kind of my plan.
And so what happens? What is the corruption move of a Spectre?
The Spectre corruption drama move is when I see someone being victimized and do nothing, I mark a corruption.
So good. There's also, along with corruption moves, there are also intimacy moves, where if you have a moment of intimacy, and maybe that's romantic, or maybe it's just a close conversation, or whatever we determine in play is an intimacy moment, then each different archetype gets a different intimacy move that they can then use.
My intimacy move is it's really cool actually. When I have a moment of intimacy with someone, I hold one, and whenever they get into trouble, I can spin my hold to instantly go to where they are.
It's like Al from Quantum.
Exactly.
It's
it's my Ziggy move.
And then we also have a bunch of standard stuff, and we'll talk more about advances and everything when we get to it. But
This is a little bit crunchier of a game than Monster of the Week was, so I don't think we need to go into like every.
we'll get
every
to them
detail.
when we get to them.
Yeah.
What color
I'm just
eyes
trying-
does she
trying to
have?
see. Okay, so who wants to go next?
Dad, you wanna do it?
Sure. Yeah.
Who are you?
Oh! What faction is the Spectre?
Oh,
I mean, it's not really a certain faction.
No, but it says like it says a member. It says a member of blank.
Well, he would technically be knight.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Dad.
That's all right. My character is called Gandhi Dancer.
I did not know this was a thing until you
Yeah.
explained it.
I did my research, man.
yeah, you're a real nerd.
Her parents were workers on the Ocean to Ocean Railroad.
The old OTO.
The old OTO.
The OTO.
And there was an accident in which they were killed, but in very heroic fashion, they saved about a dozen of their co-workers, and they both died. And,
Yes, that's typically what happens when people are killed.
and
There's death.
so
Well, to be fair, this is a world with like specters and stuff.
Yeah.
That is a fair point, Travis. I did not consider ghosts.
and you know what? Put an asterisk next to that. Maybe that's something we want to go back to.
The option's always there. You know what I mean?
So
Oh, thank
Emil
you, Mr. the
Mosch,
Mind, for
who was the
retweeting that.
head of the OTO, the
I really do
multi.
appreciate
Did you
that.
name this person after your own middle name?
I actually named this person after my own great grandfather, whose
Oh,
name
okay.
was
Okay.
Emil Mosch.
Now, I do want to point out, I specifically made the choice not to name characters that might end up being jerks after our listeners, but you just went ahead.
Oh, I don't
and did it for your grandfather.
I don't know if he was a jerk or not. I don't think,
But he could be.
he
He
could
could
be.
Oh, you don't know if your grandfather was a jerk or not.
I
Okay, that's fair.
great grandfather. My
Great
grandfather was great. Anyway, Moshe, partly maybe for PR, partly to be a sound business decision, Moshe has sort of taken her under his wing and agreed to like pay for anything for her life to.
Now,
for
let's
her-
clarify that, though. 'Cause
Yeah.
you say take it. Is that like he has had direct influence? Or
No.
just like,
No,
okay,
no.
So
It's
he's
just-
created a bankroll for
He's
her.
buying off.
Yeah, it's a
No,
legal settlement.
It's a legal settlement. It's a PR move. It's just good business. But I don't want to completely make Emil sound like a complete doofus. I mean, I think there was actually some gratitude on his part for
Do
their
they not know
heroics.
who Little
But for the
El
most part,
is? Or is it Little Neil?
it's like a settlement.
Am I the one who
to,
messed
to
up?
get good publicity and at the
Probably.
same time take care of this child. She's a wizard, so I guess
She's
that
a
puts her
wizard.
in the
Power.
She's in
power.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, hold on. Wait a minute.
And she has traveled the world studying everything she could about magic. She's obsessed
Picture show.
with the arcane. She's collected books and artifacts, learning
Feel like
every
I'm going crazy.
possible
Give
thing
me
that she could.
the
They call her Gandhi Dancer because when her parents were
actress,
killed,
please.
the other workers didn't know her name. They named her Gandhi Dancer. For one thing, Gandhi Dancer is somebody that worked on the railroads. So now she has come back, and the railroads. She loves the railroads, so she came back. She worked for a while.
Yeah, her name's
as
Little Nell.
as
That's the-
an agent on the railroads, and then she
Well.
got this job.
How long have you been in the territory and with the Graysons?
I think she's been with the Graysons for a
Oh,
couple of
she's
years.
Australian.
Are the
That I
Graysons
didn't know.
based in Dry River? Is that what you said?
They are based in the Crescent territory. Yes.
I would say that she's been working the territory for maybe a year. So does she have to be familiar with the actual town?
No.
No, I think she's really new to the town. She's on an assignment.
Gotcha.
I think it's fascinating having somebody who's like a world traveler who is here, who probably just sees it as just another stop, like another pin in the map.
Yeah, it's kind of a gig to her. I mean, because her job is really not her primary drive. I mean,
It's just a means to an end.
right.
So what keeps you up at night?
She's absolutely terrified of death.
Relatable.
She
Too real. Too real.
She is obsessed
What is
with
this?
it because she saw her parents,
Oh,
whether it was
that's-
heroic or
That's
not.
Messenger.
Even as an infant, it stuck with her.
Oh, I think something like that stuck with her. Yeah.
Is she trying to beat it?
Yeah.
I like that. Let's go ahead and jump to what do you desperately need then. So what is that her main drive and ambition?
She wants to beat death. She wants to. That's why
I
she's
color blue.
studying magic.
All
She
right.
wants to be immortal. She is. That's why she is so obsessed with magic. That's why she's so obsessed with the arcane. She is going to beat it. She's going to live forever. Fame. She's going to live forever.
Is there anyone that Gandhi is close to?
Well, one of the things about wizards is they have what's called a sanctum sanctorum.
Uh-huh.
And I decided to make hers kind of mobile. There's no rail service, I guess, to Dry River.
No.
So she has this Black Mariah, which was a police vehicle, a great big rolling
A paddy wagon.
a paddy wagon, yeah. And so she's converted this paddy
But like
wagon
in carriage form. Yeah.
right. And this paddy wagon is her sanctum sanctorum. It's loaded up with all of her arcane artifacts and everything else. And it's horse drawn, and the sanctum sanctorum allows you to have a very knowledgeable assistant. So she has this. Her assistant is a haunted doll.
On a doll watch.
Fantastic.
A
Doodly
homunculus, they call him.
doo-doo-doo-doo.
And his name is Michael, and Michael is her coachman too. He drives the horses, but he's like this repository of arcane knowledge. He dresses in robes from the Italian Renaissance,
Well, so let me ask you this then. Keeping in mind that these are real things in this world, is it a ghost of a person that is inhabiting this
hello.
world, or a demonic
Just
spirit?
request.
I don't know.
I
I
guess
don't know.
Does
in
Gandy
the
know?
comments, if it's something
Oh, yeah,
specific, I
Gandy
might
knows.
ask you
Okay. Well, you created the Gandy,
to
so
just send me
I would say probably
Dad, you're out there when she doesn't know.
a
demon. I'd say it's
image
possessed by a
reference or
demon.
something like
Excellent.
that through Twitter
I'm
DMs,
curious if you have
or
any moves,
if you're
'cause this is
coming
like
from
the
the group on
third
Facebook
magic
through
user that
Facebook
we've had across the
Messenger.
different campaigns, and
Yeah,
I'm wondering
and
how.
I've never really used a magic user.
And
don't
then I
count-
do them. It's
I don't
really first
count
come, first
Merle.
serve.
excellent. Okay.
Honestly, I think.
And so
Yeah.
It's nice to hear you say it.
a wizard
Yeah.
gets spells
Did you have any requests?
that they can use.
Also, let me know if
So
the
wizard moves are
background stuff
basically
is
channeling, which
much
is kinda
louder
you
than my
collecting
voice.
Your and I picked 3 that I like balanced characters. So Gandy is going to be able to summon elementalism, which is
You can hear me,
like
right?
the only offensive thing she has. And shielding, which I'm trying to do, and so you
Black
can track
cat
somebody
sitting on a red
to learn their
cushioned
location
stool. I
magically.
can
And
definitely
Dan,
give it a
Dan and I
try.
talked about it in creating his character.
All right, let me
where
open that
I
up.
think what we came to is in this supernatural context, like
Let's
because
save this first
power
because this is
specifically is different from
important.
mortal, right? So this is not a mortal human
Yes, I
being
would.
who can do magic.
I think
This is
it's this
someone who
one.
has taken
Or it's
on
this one.
power and become different. And so what it is
Well, that's
Gandy
not what I wanted
has
at all, but
magic
okay. All right.
and then carries foci
I guess I'll
that
just.
allow her to use that
Oop.
magic in
Alright.
specific ways.
Right. I didn't want her to be an all-powerful spell slinger or anything that she wanted to come up with. She could. She basically has these
Just
3
sketch
spells,
it out first.
and they work through artifacts that she carries.
Tell us, Dad, a little bit about the wizard-specific corruption move.
Oh yeah, drama moves. The
All right,
wizard
what's
corruption
going on?
move is if you strike a
'Cause
deal
too
with
much going on?
somebody dark and powerful, you got to mark corruption.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that maybe, well, for instance, if she uses Michael, if that's a demon, would that not make her take
Well,
on
it depends. You could use him, but then if there's some kind of deal of like, well, I could tell you that, which also I think then is another good balance where Michael doesn't just give you all the information you need.
Right.
It gives you, maybe you've already struck a deal for certain levels of information and certain levels of power, and you
Okay.
have to make the
Kinda-
decision of how much deeper do you go.
Kind of like Bob,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Bob.
right?
Yep. Said that Gandy is female.
Right. She's female. She is Asian.
Specifically East Asian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you described her to us earlier. It's weird that's like not in the list for character creation in this game, but I think it would behoove us to be a little bit more specific.
And I think she has really embraced the investigator, I think she would dress and
Ooh, the tablet does
in
not like
dark
this many things
colors,
going
I
on,
think,
huh?
in variations of standard Western wear, like maybe
So in the options, archaic clothing,
okay, I didn't
comfortable
like it
clothing,
like
dark
that
clothing,
anyway.
fancy clothing.
I'd go dark, but at the same time, I think she would dress, with pants and a cool vest and maybe a duster. Although we just used a
I
duster.
will write down cool vest, but you're going to have to prove to me that such a thing exists.
Mr. James
I'm
West
just-
on the Wild
wait,
Wild
hold on.
West.
If you're about to jump on Twitter to tell me about how cool your vest is, that was a joke. I own vests too.
Yeah.
Vests are great. I'm just a little friendly ribbon betwixt my dad and I.
Can I talk about mine now?
Real quick, because it just occurred to me, I haven't mentioned this yet. So, in Monster of the Week, to compare it, you level up your character when you fail a bunch, right? So if you fail enough, you get to level up. One of the things that they do in Urban Shadows to encourage you to deal with other factions outside of your own and make faction moves is every time you interact with a faction, you get to mark that faction. And when you fill up all 4 of them, that's how you more or less level up your character. And so it really drives you to play more with the interactions with the other groups and interpersonal interactions. Anyways, I just thought that was a cool thing that we hadn't touched on yet. Okay, Griffin, tell me about your character.
So Travis, in us creating our characters, Travis.
I thought you were going to name your character Travis.
So
You son of
Travis,
a bitch.
What an honor that would be.
Travis kind of encouraged us to
Nah, that doesn't look
try
right.
to have characters that are in these different groups, specifically werewolves and vampires. And I made my character last because I was working on finishing up Amnesty, and we didn't have one of those either. Either one of those, and so I was trying to figure out a way to do a werewolf or a vampire that would be like interesting to me, because I'm not super interested in doing something that kind of already exists in the world, like following the strict vampire or werewolf rules, even though we get to like tailor what those are. I didn't think would be like particularly satisfying. And so what I landed on is I'm making a werewolf. The class is called the Wolf. It's a member of Night. And he's a hunky teen named Jacob. No. I could.
I got so excited for a second.
I know. I was like, oh, yeah. Now we're rocking into that next level.
No, what made it click was Travis mentioning that,
make this podcast commercial. You know?
Travis mentioned that this was a game kind of about politics, and that kind of resonated with me. The idea of a werewolf pack being a political thing inherently, right? Like they have territory that they control, and there are hierarchies of power inside of a werewolf pack and all that stuff I thought was interesting. And so I kind of blended that with my idea, which is a werewolf former politician. Somebody who I think used to live in like a larger city than Dry River and was a local politician. I've done some research, and it's actually kind of tough to find. There was not a lot of like codified political structures in small cities, especially unincorporated territories like Dry River. And so I think he was like something akin to like a city council member or an alderman, somebody who had a very hyper localized sort of area of influence. Travis also encouraged us not to make all like purely good characters, but I liked the idea of somebody who once was a very idealistic politician, a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington kind of type, but also somebody who was like very ambitious. Like I think my character wanted to be president one day, but his sort of werewolf transformation and powers.
How do
started
cats
to
ears sit
manifest,
again?
and then
I know
that
they're
sort
kind of
became
like
kind
up
of a
here.
non-starter. His name is Errol Ryehouse, and so when these powers started to manifest, his wolf nature started to manifest. I think he wanted to stop it. I think he wanted a way out, because he wanted to be president, and
Just bring
we
one of
can
my
make this
cats
world
in here.
what you
Hey, I
want it,
need
but
you
still
for
think
anatomy.
he was worried about trying to be a werewolf president, right? So he tried to
So, to be fair, coming this summer,
werewolf president. So he tried to find a way out of it, and that is where I found what I think was interesting about this character, and it was something I had to kind of work with Travis on to make it work for the game. He sought out a magical means of reversing his lycanthropy, and it went wrong, and now he is permanently half transformed between human and werewolf. He is permanently, imagine in Teen Wolf, or I mean any werewolf movie, but for me Teen Wolf was the anchor here, that where he's starting to get a little hairy, starting to transform a little bit, and then like it's about to go down. Except for him, it's just always about to go down. He is constantly mid transformation, and that required kind of some tailoring of this class and how it operates. Specifically, the wolf has a whole section about the transformation where you have these latent things that you get as a benefit. You get natural weaponry for +2 harm and 1 armor. Armor is the thing in this game. It functions basically the same way as it did in Monster of the Week. So he has that stuff, but then you get to pick these other powers where you pick 2 powers and 2 weaknesses. And because he's just always half transformed, I think he only gets 1 power and 1 weakness. And that is that he has even more armor on top of that. He has 2 armor naturally. His weakness was tough for me because a lot of these were sort of geared around, like, there's one that's you can't resist the change when it comes. So the thing that I thought would be more
Weasels
interesting for
have
Travis
no
is to
bones.
just lean into
Um,
one sort of established piece of werewolf lore, which is that
you know
silver
that-
weapons ignore my armor. So
Hold
he
on.
is like
Excellent.
he's an armored character, right? And that's like his big benefit is that he's tough because he is he's always half transformation, unless somebody knows his weakness, which is silver. And as cliche as that is, like I think it lets you do some really interesting stuff.
Just to establish that piece of supernatural lore too in the world, why that's such a great pick is one of the hereditary traits.
Are you
of
sure about
werewolves in
that?
This world I've created is an allergy to silver. And so for most, it manifests in different forms, just as people have different reactions to different allergies. And I love that for Errol, it's like poison. You know what I mean? It's not just like,
it's going to take too long. I'm just going to...
itching. It's like, no. This is severe.
Well, and everyone who has like superpowers also needs a weakness.
Yes.
And as literal as this is, like, I think it could be really interesting. So what's cool about the wolf class, and the reason why I thought a werewolf politician would be so interesting, is you have a mechanic called your territory. And I'm using some of the same vernacular that Travis is using. My territory is not Dry River. It is an area inside of Dry River. And I think the fiction there is that he once was a local politician in his hometown. And I think despite the fact that like part of his life is kind of over, he still wants to fight for a neighborhood. And that's what his territory is a neighborhood. And in sort of the game's language, it is like a werewolf territory. It is your hunting grounds. And while you are in there, you have certain benefits, and there are certain things you kind of have to watch out for while you defend that territory. But for him, it is a literal political territory. It is his neighborhood. So my territory, I get to choose some stuff. It spans several city blocks. The people here work hard to keep the streets safe from crime.
I'm gonna try turning off some apps on my computer
because of his guardianship, his stewardship.
See if that helps a bit.
But there is some sort of presence more powerful than me that the people in the territory swear fealty to. That is probably like the actual, mayor or sheriff of this town. Like the people are grateful for Errol's support, but like, they still have to like do the regular town shit. I left a lot of blanks because I didn't know that much about what Dry River was, and I thought that Travis could help me fill in the gaps a little bit more. And also, mortals in the area are actively trying to revitalize local businesses and architecture. Kind of like a Goonies-esque vibe, where like I think this is just a residential area in the town that he tries to keep safe despite this like quiet war that is happening in Dry River for control. But like on top of that, also
now second question, Shantic,
changing a little bit.
Is that a request of Weasels Have No Bones?
The less power and less control he has in that territory, and all of his moves stem from that. So like, I'm like really good at hunting people down in my territory. I'm really good at persuading people in my territory. I actually roll. There's different stats in the game, and heart is what you usually roll with when you have to like persuade somebody. It's like your charisma. But there's also a stat called blood that is like the raw power in your blood, which werewolves are like all about. And in your territory, you actually roll with that to persuade people. And so there's different.
So good, Ditto.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so there's different like benefits that he gets from being a werewolf politician when he's specifically in his neighborhood. And it's such a different way of doing business than he used to do it, right? He's not getting out there pressing the flesh and kissing babies. I don't think anybody would, let him get that close to their baby at this point. But it is a way of interpreting these two things in a way that I think is going to be really, really cool. So that
how do the people in his territory feel about him now that he's half?
I don't know if I can, but I can try after this.
I think that he came to Dry River as like, I think a Dry River is a place where you can be as a werewolf or as a vampire, right?
Just to jump in real quick, just to give you and the listeners kind of the way I'm envisioning the territory as a whole and how Dry River fits in there. So I think about it a lot like Los Angeles, right? Where Los Angeles is this gigantic city. And within it, you have like the Valley and West Hollywood and Venice Beach, and you have all of these individual neighborhoods that have within themselves like their own local governments and their own kind of like they're the mayor of Hollywood and that kind of thing. And so Dry River would be like Culver City, you know what I mean, where it is the thing. And then Crescent Territory is like Los Angeles as a whole,
Got
right?
it.
So when you talk about your territory, yes, absolutely. You all do not live in Dry River, but Dry River exists within a territory and within a section of Crescent territory that I
Right.
definitely think you have influence over.
And his territory, I have not like nailed it down, but I think it's just the place where people live. I don't think it's like the business district. I don't think it's like the main,
Ooh, too bad.
political hub of the city. I think that he is not. I think he is. So just like looking at his faction stats, it's basically across the board. Like, okay. I think he doesn't. I don't think he is necessarily ingratiated with the werewolf community because he's half werewolf. I don't think he's necessarily beloved by the human community outside of his territory because he's half human. Like I think that I think he's kind of in between somewhere. And like that's the kind of stuff that I want to explore with him. This idea of werewolves are political, and he is just now trying to learn what that means as a former politician, because he has these skills and he's still a very idealistic, very good person. It's just he's had to change the way he thinks about politics and interpersonal relationships and how he is able to help the city in which he lives.
And they will love him as long as the garbage gets picked up on time and the potholes get fixed.
Well, I think that's how he joins up
No, I'm
with the
serious.
Graysons. Yeah, I think he joins up with the Graysons for this reason. Is he just sees the Graysons as like, well, they're trying to help, and so that's why I'm here. This job got maybe a little bit too big just for him to do alone, but the Graysons seem to have their shit in order and are doing some good, or not, if not good, are helping to balance the city out and
Some kind of
the
order.
territory out, establish some kind of order. Yeah.
So Ditto, run me through just on the basic level.
Sorry, I keep pausing. I get distracted by
that kind of
the
stuff, and then we'll do
the
intro
YouTube
questions
screen
and
that's
figure out
pulled
your
up
debts.
on
And
my
that I
phone
also
so that I
realized,
can
we did not nail down
actually
your debts. We'll get back to that in a second.
look
so,
at
I
the
went with
chat
male,
when it's updated.
And then I want him to be a Latinx dude, which is again like I want to like drive this home. Like I do not want to. It would be kind of problematic if it was like he is Latinx and also a big monstrous beast. That is like absolutely not what I am going for this character, because I think that'd be very bad. But when I thought about this character being this sort of community leader and idealistic politician and sort of everything else about him, I sort of just envisioned him as Latinx. And then for clothing, I had baggy clothing, concealing clothing, dark clothing, dirty clothing. I went with concealing clothing. I'm imagining like a coat with some sort of hooded garment underneath it. Which I'm not thinking of it as concealing in like he is embarrassed of being half transformed all the time, but rather like it helps him in certain situations where people might have questions about hey, like why are you half werewolf, half human? Where I don't think he minds answering those questions, but it might be a little bit more convenient when he's on like an investigation. Like there may be times where it is beneficial to just kind of get in, get out, unnoticed. Sometimes, not that he's a particularly stealthy character, but I think he likes having the option. And then for demeanor, there was aggressive, no; feral, no; violent, no; and then excitable. Okay, okay. If it's not going to be the other three, sure. Let's. I think he is probably a pretty excitable dude.
And what I also really like about excitable compared to the other three is like excitable can apply in so many different ways, because it can be like he's passionate about his community and he gets excited at the idea of like improving
That's a
something,
wonky
or it can
tail.
be like he's
I'm
just
sorry about that. I'll
enthusiastic
fix
about
that.
Yeah,
new
sure.
opportunity, whatever.
Right away.
And
Yeah.
so it's a good kind of descriptor of someone who maybe reacts to a lot of things in a lot of positive, excitable ways.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you some of the intro questions, right? How long have you been in this territory and with the Graysons? It sounds like kind of a lifelong territory thing.
No. Because remember, he like moved.
Oh,
he
right,
moved.
right,
He
right.
moved here after his sort of botched attempt to shed his lycanthropy. I think he's only been in Dry River for like 8 months or so. Feels right to me. Like I think he's probably
Been in
one
the
of the
territory, just to keep nailing down.
Yes. Sorry.
So The
in
ears
that
are
time, he had sort of
still
started to work for the community and learned,
a
or
bit
has
of
at least
a
started to learn,
problem
like
for
how
me.
he
At least the one
can
that's
continue to be
facing
this like
us.
community leader and community supporter with his sort of new half werewolf sort of thing that he's got going.
So keeping that in mind, one of the questions is, what's the best thing about the change? But I think
Sort
I'm
of
going to change that
similar
a
to
little
what
bit
I
to
did,
ask,
but
what's the best thing that came out of the trying to shed the curse, trying to shed the genetic part of it?
I mean, I like what's the best thing of the change, because if I'm talking mechanically, he's got -1 heart, and that's like your charisma stat. So he maybe wasn't the best, he wasn't the most charismatic politician,
I know,
right?
kind of,
But
they
now he
got
has like a
some
new
sort of
way of doing things, and that new way actually
this
works for him a
going on.
lot better than the old way did. So I think in a lot of ways, like, he has learned a lot more about community and all that since he became a werewolf. So I think that's why he's kind of leaned into it, and that's why he's not like embarrassed of the change and not like anything like that. It is just a different way of being a community leader that is actually kind of better.
And who is the most important person in the territory to you?
Then that
I
looks
kind of left that question
so
up to you,
weird.
because I don't know about the politics of this town, but I still think he thinks of like the mayor or the governor of the territory or whoever's in charge here as the most important person. And he probably disagrees with a lot of their decisions. He's probably very opinionated about that stuff, but that's probably the answer to that.
Oh, I like that, because I like that as a general answer that then we can figure out more specifically as we play, of just like he likes people who bring order to the territory and people who, are not necessarily in control, because there will be criminal organizations and, business
Why don't I
interests,
just
but this
do-
idea of like social control, order, structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you desperately need?
So again, like, I wanted to push away from like he wanted to, also because like after talking about our characters, I don't want it to be the same as Justin's thing. Like, he's not looking for a way to fix this, because I don't think he sees it as something that's broken. I think for him, like, his main drive is keeping his territory safe, which I think can be really interesting, because there's a lot of stuff in the game about your territory changing and coming under these threats that you've established.
Griff,
So
do you think it's
What I'm
fair to
gonna
say
do
then that
now is
'cause
color.
obviously he did at some point want to change it. Is it fair to say that he sort of like learned a lesson from that, like about like who
Fix
accepting
my
who
glove
he
in
is
color.
rather than trying to like is the botch transformation like something that changed his mind about
Yeah,
that?
for
like,
sure,
forced
for
him to
sure.
sort of accept who he was.
I think
Not to
absolutely.
put words in your mouth, but
No,
I'm curious
I think that's a good way of putting it, because I think he kind of now recognizes like, oh, if I was just still a werewolf that transformed the usual way that
Whoops.
werewolves transformed, I would kind of slot more
New
neatly
layer
into
for the color
these,
would be nice.
these like categories that would make it, politically speaking, probably easier to do what I want to do. But now that I'm here, like, this is what the situation is, and I have had to become comfortable with that too. But to me, that's like kind of separate from this thing, which is like his main motivating drive is his territory and keeping it safe, because he wants to do what he can, not just to like protect the people who live in his territory from whatever sort of struggles are happening in this city between the different factions, but also like the usual city stuff. Like Dad mentioned the trash being taken out on time. Like, I think he does think about that stuff, and he wants to make sure that the territory and Dry River are doing well, and that his territory is benefiting from that. I also want to mention he has he's good at like hunting and stuff, because he does have like these wolf powers, and that's his drama move. Whenever I begin a hunt for someone, I mark corruption. Basically, anytime that I like lean into my like powers or whatever, it does sort of it taps into this thing that is kind of against his nature a little bit. That's not so much necessarily talking about like the political side of things. That's like his main jam. But anytime he does sort of need to push the limits a little bit of his wolf powers, it sort of goes against his nature, and he marks corruption.
Okay, so Justin, with Augustus, we established that there was a debt to the church 2 debts to the church, and then I assume also a debt to, you said you were haunting Altizer, so there's probably a debt there. And then there's one more. Let me find it.
Can you add debts as the story goes along?
Oh, yes.
Oh, debts are changing constantly.
That's what it is. And then those are 2 of your 3, and then the other one is someone or someone's progenitor was involved in your death. They owe you a debt. Do you have? Is there anything along the lines of Augustus's death that is blamed on someone else?
Yeah, the one of the mining companies, we were sort of squabbling over territory, and my belief is, I don't have concrete proof of this, but my belief is that he had me killed.
Okay, so maybe to like keep you quiet about it, they haven't
Any
admitted
specific
fault.
eye color
The
for the
finest-
cat?
The finest
'Cause
cashew
that's
farming
coming up.
land in the area is also very rich in mineral deposits,
Excellent.
and he wanted the land for himself, and he couldn't buy me out because I'm a bitter old man.
Excellent. So there was.
His name is Flint Chittles.
Oh wait, that's the name of the
Flint Chittles, you owe me big.
Flint Chittles. Perfect. Dad, tell me.
Do you want to know something weird, Travis?
Uh-huh.
I just came up with that name.
No.
Can we do that? I owe a debt to Boop Strongly.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me write it down.
You guys probably thought I came up with that for a long time, but I
No.
just did it just now.
Yeah, that's
Flint
amazing.
Chittles.
So
If it means anything, I believe you, Justin.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you for believing in me.
in Wizard, your debts, your starting debts, are someone is helping you keep the demons at bay. You owe them a debt. Someone is your go-to when you get in trouble. You owe them 2 debts. And you are helping someone keep a dangerous secret. They owe you a debt.
All right, the go-to when I get into trouble is Chint Flittles.
Come on.
Is it Flint Chittles?
No,
Stay in your lane.
Chint-
No, Flint Chittles is
Chint Flittles.
no, Flint Chittles is mine. You can't steal you can't make a parody of mine. It's not even on Tumblr yet, Mac.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I'll do the parody later. I think it would be more interesting if Michael.
Now I can't remember which one is mine. Flint Chittles or Chin Flint.
Flint
Oh,
Chittles.
Dad.
I wrote it down.
Okay,
So
Michael,
thanks.
your homunculus.
Yeah, my
Yes.
haunted doll. I think that Michael is the go-to when she gets in trouble,
Excellent.
and she owes him 2 debt.
And I think we've already kind of touched on
Last
that to say,
call,
like,
stay
Michael
calm.
your source
Is
of
there any
information.
specific
And so
eye
has
color
already-
you
like,
want,
you've already made this
or
promise twice,
am I
you
just
know?
picking?
So, like,
because I might make
there's
it
then the
yellow if I'm just
opportunity for
picking?
more debts to be offered, but we've already established that is why he is so free with information to you, because you owe 2 debts already. So
And I was thinking, I don't know who the other 2 but I was thinking, what if one either Augustus or Errol has a debt? Can I have a debt?
yes,
with one of them?
absolutely.
Well, what I'm saying is maybe.
What hey Dad, do you know the job that brought you to town? Just a thought. What if I hired Gandhi?
to help. I was thinking to help Augustus.
No, to investigate Flint Chittles.
Oh, okay.
So I can try to prove that he was the one who killed me. That's kind of fun, isn't
That's
it?
Yeah, I like
great.
that. Awesome. Yeah, I would love that. So that would be.
We'll put that in the first one. So you owe Augustus a debt, and then are you keeping someone's terrible secret, or if we want to just say someone owes you a debt for some reason?
I can answer that maybe with my debts. Maybe we can make this the
Okay,
same thing.
so yeah,
'cause
you go ahead.
Yeah, I have someone is hiding you from someone or something powerful. You owe them a debt, and I thought it could be cool to use that with Gandhi through some sort of magical means, because she has shielding magic. She is keeping my presence sort of off the books from somebody back in the old family, maybe back in the town where I'm from, where I started out, that I kind of ran away from after things went south. And so for that reason, I actually owe
Okay, let me
Gandhi
help
a
out
debt.
with this then.
Please
so
do.
let's say, because I have in my fiction, there is a kind of
Alright, it's
head
gonna
of
be
a
yellow.
magical criminal organization known only as the Banshee, and you know nothing else about them. They are very, very secret. No one's ever met them and lived. But let's say that in trying to reverse the curse, as it were, Arrow made a deal with the Banshees organization,
Yes,
and then
good.
didn't deliver, and
Good.
that's why the halfway transformation.
Yes,
as
good.
The curse. Yes,
Good and yes, because one of my debts is someone is living in your territory benefiting from your protection. They owe you a debt. And I think this would be the woman, a wizard, another wizard who tried this transformation, tried to cast this spell that went wrong, was probably a member of Banshee's former sort of clique and was excommunicated. And so so I am trying to keep her hidden in my neighborhood. Her name is Boop Strongly.
Uh-huh.
And no, her name is. Let me look at a random name generator.
I liked Boop strongly, but
How about Daria? Daria Cross.
okay.
Daria Cross is her name. She was the one who tried to transform me, and it didn't work out. But there's no bad blood.
Oh, I
So
forgot
she
to
owes me a debt
advertise this
because
at
I am
thing.
sort of as
Discord.
as Gandhi is keeping me sort of hidden from the Banshee. Daria is also here. Is that too snake eating its own tail?
No. I love this because I was going to suggest the second one here is someone hired you for a job and you fucked it up.
I think that's Augustus. I think I was also hired by Augustus to
Oops.
investigate this. Maybe that could, because you want this team to exist before we get into this story.
Oh,
Maybe
yes.
that's what first brought us together. And the reason that Augustus doesn't know whether or not Flint was his killer or not is because I did something during the investigation that fucking ruined the whole thing.
Okay, we can play with that more because I would love to explore later if you did that on purpose to save Flint Chittle's life. Like you knew that if Augustus could prove it, then the same might be dealt upon Flint Chittles.
So I owe Gandhi 1 debt, I owe Augustus 2 debts, and Daria owes me 1 debt.
So you see this being a 40 episode arc. I'm guessing.
Hey everybody, this is Griffin McElroy, your best friend, your
Oops.
werewolf president, and I'm here to read the ads because we forgot to record them while we were doing this setup episode. Sorry for skipping next week. I mentioned this on Twitter, but Justin and Sydney just had another baby, and she's
This
doing
is
very
not
well,
recent, so
and
they
we're
didn't
very,
just
very
have a
happy for
baby.
them and wanted to give Juice a little time
I'm
off for some
going
paternity
to
leave. I'm going to try to get through this quick so you
skip
can listen
ahead
to
the
the last few minutes of this
advertisements.
episode.
Maybe this
Stick
was not the
around
best
for
thing to choose
a
to
hot little piece of narration
play.
that Travis reads to say.
Here we go. And it's done.
Okay, so I think all of that is a really great start.
Well, I feel like, can you give a 2-minute long sort of overview of the rules? Because we didn't even talk about the fact that there are basic moves that sort of cover all the actions. If you listen to Amnesty, all that stuff is virtually the same.
Yeah.
Shatank, do you still want me to try doing the spineless weasel? Because if so, I'm going to need to
when we play. I would rather
look
use it in context
up
because right now it would just be a lot of words.
a reference image of
lot
a
hollow,
weasel.
empty words. But I want to read I've written a thing that's like the lead up to and go with the action. So I
Okay,
think we can
well-
wrap up here.
I'll start playing the theme music that I haven't written yet right now.
Welcome to Dry River. Back before the drought, used to call it Twin River. The town was settled on a big spit of land nestled between where the river split and then flowed back in itself. Of course, that was back when the river flowed. All that's left now is the dry bed, just a ravine, really. North and South Bridge used to be bustling with folks traveling west who would stop and spend some time in our thriving little town. Now folks give Dry River a wide pass. They've heard stories. When the water flowed, people came. Business thrived, and the fleshes, the fangs, and the furs all lived peaceful. Now every day it gets a little worse. The fangs and the furs snarl at each other, waiting for the other to make the first move. The fleshes just keep their eyes low and hope to stay out of it all. The peace, if you can call it that.
Shantic, do you
barely
still want
holding.
it?
Then, tonight, we found Jeremiah Blackwell dead in the street. Jeremiah was the eldest of Joseph Blackwell. Blackwell Sr. is just about the most respected Fang in town, not to mention the richest, thanks to the copper mine up north. All the other Fangs seem to look to him when it comes to matters. As if his eldest dying suddenly weren't trouble enough. It has every sign of an
Yikes,
attack
there's
by
new
one of the
information out
Furs,
about that Pro
Dylan
Jared thing.
Mathis. Now, nobody seems to have seen the murder, but Nick Wenstad was leaving the Sterling late last night and found Dylan hunched over Blackwell's body. Dylan's clothes soaked through with blood. The three of you work for the Grayson Agency. Grayson Agency
All right,
keeps
I'm gonna do it then.
bodyguards,
Okay.
arbiters, enforcers,
I just gotta
whatever
look
the
up a
pun means.
reference image.
What they ain't is lawmen. Abigail Mathis, Dylan's mother and owner of the silver mine south of town, had hired Graysons as arbiters, but didn't state in the telegram what it is you'd be handling. You had only just dropped your bags in your room
Spineless
above the
weasel.
Sterling when Deputy Rosa showed up to bring you to Sheriff Connors.
Okay,
When
You
Connors
know what?
first brought
I'm
Dylan
gonna-
in, he wouldn't shut up about his innocence.
gonna
Now he's keeping quiet,
just
wary. Abigail and Connors have agreed to bring you all in on this to try to sort it out.
okay.
It's midnight now.
All right, I'm gonna.
At 8 a.m.,
put
the
these
whole town
layers
is going to
together.
be awake. Once they find out what's happening,
This will stay
all
the
hell's
sketch
gonna
layer.
break loose. You have 8 hours. Good luck.
Okay. I'll switch over to the next episode. Yeah, I think there's a lag, so don't mind me if I ask the question twice. I know I don't have the best Wi-Fi at the house I'm at.
Previously on the Adventure Zone.
I'm playing a ghost whose name is Augustus Parsons.
My character is called Gandhi Dancer. She's a
Okay.
wizard.
His name is
Hmm.
Errol Ryhouse. He is.
I think what I'm gonna
permanently
do
half transformed between
is-
human and werewolf.
We found Jeremiah Blackwell dead in the street. He has
Definitely
every
going
sign
to
of an
be
attack by one of the
spineless,
Furs, Dylan Mathis.
but
The
it's
three
going to
of you work for
be
the Grayson Agency. Abigail Mathis,
more
Dylan's mother and
flat,
owner of
you
the
know?
silver mine south of town, had hired Graysons as arbiters, but didn't state in the telegram what it is you'd be handling. When Connors first brought Dylan in, he wouldn't shut up
still a
about
little
his
bit of
innocence. Now he's keeping quiet. Abigail and Connors have agreed to bring
They
you
got
all in
beady
on this
little
to try to
eyes.
sort it out. It's midnight now. At 8 a.m., the whole town is going to be awake. Once they find out what's happening, all hell is going to break loose. You have 8 hours. Good luck.
I thought I put on episode 3 accidentally. Okay. Beady little eyes. Still gonna be pretty three-dimensional because, there's still organs and junk. Actually, may want to move that over a bit.
Here we are. Episode 1 of Fish.
Wait,
we're gonna roll
the
into
arc is called Fish now?
a fish.
Welcome to the Adventure Zone, Fish. What's going on,
Fish. No, that'll be the 6th one if I know my
Yeah.
alphabet correctly.
We are doing that, right?
The next one is Extravagance.
Mm.
So I was gonna just jump straight into the story, but last night, as I was figuring stuff out, I came up with a mechanic that I really, really like that I'm gonna share with y'all. Because I set a kind of time limit on the story, I was trying to figure out a good way to work that in to the game. So what it's gonna be is I have mapped out a certain number of beats in each hour. So you can go to different locations, So, for example, during the hour of midnight, you could go to 2 or 3 locations.
I love
and
that.
Then the time will move forward. Now, the reason
That's
I got
cool.
the 2 or 3 is the other part of the mechanic is you have the option to either completely separate or go to places together. If you go to places together, you only have time to do 2. But if you separate, you have time to do 3 beats. And the problem is that if you're by yourself, you're without the faction help and the skills of the other people, but you have time to do more investigating.
And I'll
That's really
miss
good.
you.
It's funny that you came up with that independently. There's I think a Sherlock Holmes Powered by the Apocalypse game. I've heard it a couple times on the Friends at the Table podcast that has basically this exact mechanic in it, and I always thought it was really neat.
Excellent. Well, I'm a genius. And to put a little
Or a
bit more
thief, or
pressure on
an idea
Or a
thief, a
thief.
copyright
A thief.
thief.
one of those two. No, I
Definitely one of
I
those.
definitely did not steal the idea. Came to me last night in a dream. And
As he was
also,
listening to his favorite sleeping podcast, Friends at the Table.
to add a little bit more kind of pressure to this Old West police procedural I've written, certain characters will be unavailable during certain times. Either they've gone to sleep, or they are at work, or whatever. And certain locations will be unavailable during certain times. So, like, if you don't go talk to somebody in, say, like, midnight or 1 to 3, you won't get a chance to talk to them after that.
Killer.
Cool.
So we are gonna
Everybody's
start-
asleep because it's midnight to 8.
It's
so
midnight. What are
everyone's
y'all
sleeping.
doing?
That'll do it, folks.
So we're gonna start in the sheriff's office, and this does not
Whoops.
count towards your time. We are probably gonna only get to the midnight beats, I think, in this first episode, because there will be a lot more to talk about here.
Yeah.
So also,
So I was
should also say
accidentally
that
drawing
in
him back.
Urban
That's
Shadows, usually at the beginning of a session, the players will go around and say who they distrust, what other player character they distrust
This
the
might not have
least,
been the
and
best.
there's a whole thing about setting up, but the Master of Ceremonies has the
reference
option
in
to skip
terms of
that if you're
how the
starting in the
hind
middle of a
legs
chaotic
look.
situation where there's already a lot of information
Okay,
revealed.
pretty
So
Yeah,
I'm
let's
going
do
to-
that.
pretty
Yeah, I'm
regular.
going to
Like
invoke that only because, like, we already have a lot to figure out. I don't want to add more stuff to that and complicate it.
I'm going to say I don't like Jeremy, the silent 5th member of the Adventure Zone podcast, who's playing the character of Purvis.
Take that, Purvis.
Well,
no
take
one
that,
trusts
take that,
Purvis.
Jeremy, you big donker.
So, scene, smash cut. So you're in Sheriff Connor's office. It doubles as the jailhouse. There are 3 cells across the back side
Let's just
of
say
the building.
he's
In
like a
cell
s-
number 1, which is to the far left as you're looking,
just
at them,
climbing down a
you can see
staircase.
a shape that you know is Dylan Mathis curled up on a cot. Dylan is facing away from you, so it's hard for you to
And
tell
weasels
if
have
he is
tails,
sleeping
right? I'm
or
not
simply
making that
trying
fact
to
up.
stay as
Yeah, they
still
have
and
tails.
silent as possible, trying to keep himself out of the world. I should also say that you have been briefed by your agency before you came here, so there will be certain things that you already know about the inhabitants
Okay,
and the
so
town.
Let's say
There will be other things that you will have to search out and find out on your own.
I assume you're going to tell us the first things when they are relevant.
Absolutely. And those will be the things that you know from, like, putting a name to a face or that kind of stuff. Like, I can tell you, like, who has the business interests and where things are in the town. But as far as, like, the interpersonal connections and who distrusts who and all the gossip, that's stuff you're going to have to figure out on your own.
Broad strokes, it's been about 3 weeks since we recorded this setup episode. Remind
Yes.
me, the Mathises run the copper
Yeah, so the
mine.
Mathises are the lead fur family in town.
Okay.
They run the silver mine.
Okay.
The Blackwells are the Fang leaders in town, and they run the copper mine. Sheriff Connors is the sheriff. His deputy is Deputy Rosa, and they kind of constitute the leadership
How's
of
that?
the Fleshes. But
'Cause
the
I'm
Fleshes
personally
aren't
loving it.
I mean, if you think about the nature of a pack or a family, the Fleshes aren't as, like, tightly knit
Got
as
it.
either the Fangs or the Furs.
Sure.
So when we start the scene, we actually kind of start in media res, as they say, and Connors has been explaining to you that they found Jeremiah Blackwell's body in the center of town at the intersection that's like the main part of town, and over him, covered in blood, was Dylan Mathis. So they took Dylan in under the cover of night. There was only a few witnesses, and Connors and Rosa were able to talk to people and kind of keep it quiet. But they know that once the sun's up and everybody's up and getting ready to go to work, they're not going to be able to keep this quiet, and it's going to be out of their hands. So they've been able to brief you a little bit about who was there, and we can get into that when you're exploring your options of where to go next. But when the scene starts, Rosa is kind of nervously looking out the front windows. Rosa, come away from there. You're making me jumpy. I know, Sheriff. It's just I'm got a bad feeling. Well, yeah. Of course you got a damn bad feeling. There's a murder. Now come away before someone sees you. All right, now you three. What do you need to know? I want to keep this quiet and I want to get it done. What do you need to know from me?
Well, first of all, hi. I don't think we have to be, cut out the pleasantries.
Well, after we talk to whoever we're talking to, I'd like to inspect the body.
Yeah, I was going to say looking at the body would be pretty choice.
All right. Well, we already sent that headed to the church. Well, specifically graveyard. We don't really have, coroner. Michael kind of serves as undertaker and gravedigger and kind of, I guess, groundskeeper at the graveyard. But he's there round the clock. So anytime you want to go talk to him, Michael's going to be there. As
My Michael or your Michael? Oh, you have a Michael too.
My Mike. Why would your Michael be there?
Well, he's named Michael, so you confused me with your
Okay,
rhetoric.
but
There's lots of
context
Michaels. It's a
clues.
pretty common name.
Yeah, like we didn't. Okay, there are people named Connor. I don't know about Gandhi. You might be the only one of them. But anywho, while you're at the church, you might also talk to Father Dante. He's been at the church all night, as far as I know. So he ain't like a witness or nothing, but he might be able to give you some kind of
I
information.
think I accidentally gave
so
this
as far as
ferret,
witnesses go, so it happened
like,
right in front of
furry
the Sterling,
hands,
and by definition,
and I
there, because of,
apologize,
how space
but at
works,
this point,
right in front of the Full Moon Saloon, so you might talk to Wilder there.
it's part of it.
Or, you could check in with Isabella at the Sterling. Oh, I think you might check and see if Mr. Silver was working late. He usually does that. That's right there in the square too.
Sorry, I haven't been here that long. There's a dude named Mr. Silver here in the town where you mine silver with werewolves who are allergic to silver.
Well, to be fair, I don't know if that's his real name. His shop is called Silver's Linings. He's the tailor in town.
Is his first name Hio?
No.
That would be
No.
funny, though.
Gandhi owes me a debt for having to listen to that.
That's fair.
Pardon me, as much as it mortifies me to interrupt a genuine lawman such as yourself. I do have one query. If we're so hot to find out who killed Mr. Blackwell, then why do I not just ask his ghost, which is standing directly behind you? Nah, that's just a little ghost humor. Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. I try to keep things light.
All right,
one of
no
my
problem.
classic ghost bits. It's a pleasure, Augustus Parsons.
I'm going to take a quick.
Have a good
second
night,
here
Shane.
To tell you what
Shan
you know
take,
about Sheriff
Shantak.
Connors.
I'm sorry.
He loves
That
ghost
I'm
will-
really bad at
It
names.
will explain to you why that didn't maybe have the impact you were hoping for. So
Why it didn't land.
yes, Sheriff Connors belongs to a group called the Law. And the Law exists in these unincorporated territories where there is no kind of government established. And the Law is more of like a powerful sect, if you will. They are all tainted, but not in the way that you think. They are connected to a demon, but it is a demon whose specialty is justice. But kind of justice in the terms of like Judge Dredd justice. This is not about right and wrong or morality. This is about the letter of the law. And so with that, he has been granted certain perception abilities, certain abilities to be able to discern whether someone is lying. It's not so much the ability to say, the truth is blank, but more of like, I get the feeling you're not telling me something.
Can I change characters and play as Sheriff Connors because he sounds rad?
Yeah, it's pretty rad. And as such, that is why, and because you have to imagine people who come through
Boneless
any kind of sheriff's office door will say, I'm
Weasel.
innocent, I'm innocent. But there was something about Dylan saying, I didn't do it, that kind of rang true to Connor's ears. The only reason he's given
We're
this
here.
the benefit of the
All
doubt.
right. Sheriff Connors, tell me, you got a time pencil
Any
in to
other
hang old
requests?
Dylan Mathis by the neck until dead?
Listen,
I'm open
it
for
ain't
silly
up
stuff,
to me.
legit
I
stuff.
want you to understand that, but there will come a time.
Like,
there
seriously,
is
this
a-
is
such
so
a
far
tenuous
Cat
piece here in
and
town
Boneless.
that like there
Weasel,
will come a
I'm
demand,
loving.
if I
I'm
don't,
not very good at animals,
it's
but I'm
gonna-
loving it.
It's gonna be bad for everybody, and listen, one way or the other, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Either I'm gonna piss off the fangs, I'm gonna piss off the furs, or I'm gonna piss off both. And I want to avoid that at all costs. That's why I need you. I'm going to try to keep this quiet. But if I'm out there, pounding the pavement,
We're gonna go
I'm-
back to
I'm-
that Columbia
I'm going
drawing
to draw too much
until I get
attention to
another
this.
request. I hope y'all don't
I
mind.
need you all, as strangers, out there asking questions. But for God's sake, keep it the fuck quiet.
Well, why don't we start off talking to Dylan? Because if he was there and covered in some blood, we don't know whose, probably his. We're not detectives. But let's talk to him and see what he's got to say.
You can try.
I mean,
My
fur to
hand
fur, I
is
feel
getting
like we can
sweaty in this stupid
find some
glove
common
thing.
ground.
Cool. So you want to go talk to Dylan.
Wake up, Dylan. Dylan, wake up.
Dylan doesn't move. You can see that Dylan is still breathing. So he's definitely alive, and that's about all you can tell from him lying there. He's laying.
Is
there
he
with
wearing the
full
same?
eyes.
Is he wearing the same clothes he had on when he was incarcerated?
Well, he's kind of taken off his overshirt that was the most soaked in blood. He's down to like, kind of a underclothes as far as his top goes, but you can still see that there are some blood stains on it. This is a lot of blood. But yeah, I mean, he was incarcerated about 20 minutes ago, so it's still pretty fresh. Pretty fresh.
I don't think that this may not come up, but just for the record, I can be heard and seen now, but can't currently touch or be touched by anything.
Fantastic. And he's
wonder
not
if these
responding as I yell,
things-
"Wake up, Dylan! Dylan, wake up!"
Can
No,
be
you might have to. Let's say this would be
cleaned
like a hit the
because
streets kind of
I
faction
am
move if you were trying to leverage
somebody who
your
has
fur,
sweaty hands, and it's
knight
disgusting. I
faction
know.
with
I
his
hate it
fur
myself.
knight faction.
Sure. Is he? I should ask because we don't really know how werewolves work in this world, and it's midnight. I don't know if it's a full moon. I don't know if he's in full
It
fur
is not
form.
a full moon. So basically, well, let me ask you.
Yeah.
How do you think werewolves work in this environment?
I think it's probably around the full moon. I think it's like a couple days, and maybe at the full moon it's like at its strongest. But I don't think like one night a month, they take this form. I think it's like a couple days before, a couple days after, which is kind of bullshit because that's kind of the amnesty rules. But I think that makes the most sense to me.
We can
Not that
have
it-
coherent
Yeah, sure.
multiverse
Not that
werewolf rules.
It doesn't affect Errol
Shoot.
because Errol's always half transformed, but I think that's how it works.
Why is this on?
Could it maybe wax and wane
Why
with
is
the
that?
moon, like the full moon? They're full blown wolf, and
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
And I was also thinking, and tell me if this jives with that, Ditto, like that at the peak of the full moon, it is a compulsion. That like it cannot be avoided. But on the days before and after, it's more of like just be careful, don't get too worked up.
Sure.
Like that kind of thing of like it's a risk, but it's definitely controllable, especially for elders. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit, but when you're looking at like young people, with all their hormones and hula hoops.
Hormones
for
and
them to get
hula
Their
hoops.
yo-yos and their Pepsi Colas. Let me hit the streets to try to wake this little dude up.
Cool. Give me a roll.
That is a 6 + 1, a 7.
Great. So that's a mixed success. So you hear, what do you want?
I want to keep you from getting, massacred in the middle of town when everybody wakes up. How's that for an answer there, Dill?
I can't.
Can't's just a won't with a pretty
CA.
face on it.
Can't.
No, listen, that's nothing. Dylan, I know, I don't care how you feel about it. You're actually the only one who can in this situation. So, I need you to get up and just come talk to us. I'm not going to force you to do nothing you don't. What?
She wouldn't want me to. I promised.
I don't know who you're talking about, Dylan. You can't sort of start a conversation in the middle of a sentence, bud.
I'm just so tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's midnight. We're all pretty tired, but there was a murder.
I'm not. I don't sleep.
Yeah.
I'm a ghost.
Yeah, fantastic.
Specificity in all things, young man. Specificity.
Dylan, listen.
Leave me alone.
Well, no, I'm not gonna do that. You're like in a little cage, and so I can just stand here and talk all night if you want. My buddy here apparently doesn't sleep, so he could keep that going for, God, I don't know, eternity. Gus.
Yeah. It's Augustus. And also, yes, I could also look, I'm in your cage now. This could get very annoying for you very quickly.
I'm not saying anything to you.
Problem with this movie is that
which
the
one?
makeup
Any
and the
of you.
costumes
Oh,
don't
leave
stay
Me alone. So,
exactly
the mixed success here, just
the
to
same.
be clear, is you did find out something, right?
She wouldn't want this.
Right. But he's not going to give you much more than that. You can try to persuade at this point, but it's going to be a pretty high roll.
Yeah. Can I try something else?
Sure.
So I have a thing called Bloodhound. When you hunt someone, roll with blood. On a hit, you know exactly where to find them and follow their scent until you do.
Uh-huh.
It's too late.
Can I use that to, in full-blown sort of wolf instinct style, sort of get the scent of the blood on his shirt, and if it leads me to him, I know it's his. And if it leads me to the church, I know it's Jeremiah.
You got it.
That is a 7 + 2 blood, 9.
Okay, so it definitely doesn't lead you to him.
Okay.
It leads
That's
in the
better.
direction of the church.
Okay,
but
shit.
but it's hard to track kind of that far out. Church is outside of town, but you can just it is definitely leading away from him.
Okay, so I could follow the scent and figure out where it goes and find out whose blood it is.
You
so at least we
would, but
got-
I mean that would be, a beat. You know what I mean?
right?
So
Yeah,
it-
sure.
yeah.
I'm just saying now we have 2 pieces of information. All right,
You
anybody
have
else
a
want to
piece? And let me say, and I don't think this has been a thing that we have pushed in any of our arcs up to now. You probably want to take notes.
Yeah,
There's going to be a lot of information.
Also, wolf corruption move. When you start a hunt for someone, mark corruption. So I think I just did that.
Hey, first
Yeah.
corruption.
I didn't think. I thought for sure Augustus was going to be. All right, I have 1 corruption.
And you can spend that at our store right outside the gates. This is the information you have, right? I'm going to fast forward a little bit and just kind of collect. So here at the start, your options are, this is what Sheriff tells you, right? The Sterling is an opportunity. You know that is the vampire kind of hangout tavern in town. It is also the casino. Then there is and this is another thing you know from your briefing, Isabella Slate is now the proprietor of the Sterling. She took it over from a man named Marcus 2 years ago. Marcus disappeared mysteriously, and basically Isabella kind of turned power back over to the people working there. Marcus was not a good person. So the Sterling is a possible beginning location. The Full Moon Saloon, which is the werewolf hangout tavern. You could also head to the church and the graveyard, the Mathis home, and Silver's linings to talk to Mr. Silver.
We were brought on by the Mathis matriarch, right? It was
Correct.
her,
Abigail
and, okay.
Mathis.
Because that's the only she I could think of that would be the obvious sort of answer here.
Well, let's give it a shot.
Gandhi really wants to take a look at the body. I mean, since her, her skill set kind of is in the analytical, magic kind of thing, I really think she feels a compulsion to go look at the body.
Yeah, let's get that's police work 101. Get the clues before
Get the clues.
You got to
start
talk
talking.
to the coroner, find out about the autopsy.
Got to slide over the hood of a car.
Yeah, let's head to the church.
All right, we're gonna go to church, do some Hail Marys, and crack the case.
All right, we're going to be here. So feel free to stop back by here anytime if you need to bounce anything off of us or need any guidance or anything. We're going to be here. We'll see what we can get out of the boy. And if you need us, just let us know.
Yeah, that sounds. Oh shoot! Hey, Augustus, are you even gonna be able to go into church? I don't know if there's some sort of like holy warding or something that keeps you out of there.
I can. I just don't enjoy it. But to be fair, that is no change from my life.
All right. We're going to church.
So as you make your way through town, the town doesn't feel right. It feels tense in that way that it might just be completely placebo, but in that way that buildings and wood seems to absorb the negative emotions of the people within it, and it kind of bleeds through like a whiskey as it picks up the flavoring of the barrel. And so as you move through town...
Hell yeah, that's evocative as fuck.
Thank you. You have a hard time not looking over your shoulder. You have a hard time not keeping your eyes on the windows to make sure nobody's watching you. And as you leave town and make your way towards the church about 50 yards outside of the last houses, it eases a little
All right,
bit.
something's definitely
You can
going
see
on with my
all
phone.
around you the ravine.
We got a
with
lot
the
of
dry
people
river.
liking
In the distance, you
things.
can see the mountains.
Never
You can
mind.
see the stars in the sky, and it starts to loosen up, but still at your backs, you can feel the tension. And you're just breathing a little easier out here. And then as you approach the church, you see above the door the symbol of the church, capital T, capital C. That's all we got out here in the Crescent territory is the church. It ain't exactly a specific religion or denomination. It's just a group trying to spread some sort of morality. And then you have two options as you approach the church. You can either head into the church and talk with Father Dante, or you can head into the graveyard and look for Michael.
Graveyard, right, Gandhi?
Absolutely. Let's go and see what's shaking, baby.
Now these are my people.
So as you head into the graveyard, it's silent as the grave. But you can
But,
see in the middle of the
Less
graveyard-
evocative.
Yeah. You can see in the middle of the graveyard a small house with the lights on inside. The lights are flickering. It's very clearly either some kind of lantern or candles. I assume you want to approach.
Yeah, I imagine me kind of. I want to keep following this, like following the wafting scent of the pie through the air as I follow the scent. Is it heading towards that house? Or...
Indeed, it is.
All right.
So as you
So, is
approach
there
the
anybody
door-
left in the
lines.
stream?
As you approach the door and raise your hand to knock, the door opens before you can make contact.
One person,
Gandhi, Gus,
maybe.
Errol, was it?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, it's ERROL. I know a lot of people on Twitter have trouble with that. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Come in. And you see before you a very broad and frankly beautiful man. He has a warm smile and kind eyes, and immediately gives you a feeling of peace that's only slightly thrown off by his blood-stained apron and gloves.
Yeah, that's one of my main turnoffs is if they're covered in blood.
When you enter, you can see laid out on a slab is Jeremiah Blackwell. You can tell that Michael has been in the process of cleaning the body and preparing it for funeral rites.
It
Sorry to bother you,
is. This
sir.
is
Can we
Dust.
take
I
a
think
look
I
at the
know who
stake?
you
We're
are, though.
conducting an investigation.
Oh,
Yep, that's what I
no
thought.
bother at all. I expected you. Of course.
I figured Dust would be the
But
best one
it
to
wasn't
not
a steak.
spoil
That's
things.
archaic.
I don't know.
It was claws.
No, I think he
You
meant
got
like
any requests?
STEAK, like the meat.
Yes, this is all
No
made me
problem.
very hungry, this appetizing
course.
environment.
Of course.
No, I meant so
I get it.
see here
Be
I
safe
thought-
driving, though, please.
Serves me right for believing all those
Like,
fantasy novels. I thought
If
they
you
could
gotta
only be
turn this
killed
off, I
with a stake
totally
through the
support
heart.
that so you can
Bear in mind,
drive.
I've never attempted it.
I mean, they can pretty much be killed, same as you or me. Well, same as a regular person, I should say.
No, well, that's very kind of you, sir. Thank you. So few people take into account my phantasmagoric nature.
I make the same mistake.
Yeah,
about
like a drawing
myself all the
request.
time. It's so easy to forget.
Indeed.
Can we pick this up, please? I am very, very uncomfortable in this setting.
Of
With all
course,
this,
after your parents' death, this was probably
Okay.
very unsettling for you.
I gotta stop you right there, bud. Are you like some sort of psychic? What's your whole deal? We're very, very short on time, and I love sort of the spooky thing you got going on, but we need to get to the bottom of it as fast as possible.
Well, let
then-
me help. Let me help. I would like to figure someone out.
Okay.
I would like to figure Michael out. I roll with mind.
Go for it.
And all right, I'm rolling with mind, and it is
A 0.
a 9
I
plus 2 for
need
mind,
to get
so it's
a
an 11.
new desk
So,
chair. Because this is
Michael
not
is
comfortable
giving
for me.
you incredibly strong immortal vibes. Now, this is an option for NPCs only. So this is an old one, an angel, a god, something along those lines. But Michael is most definitely and has never been not human, has never been human, isn't fey, isn't power, isn't knight, isn't anything.
Something else. Well, he also
He's
has
his
to
own
ask-
thing.
He has to ask 2 questions as part of figure someone out, right?
So let's say that's one answer. Give me another question.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you,
Bowtie.
Michael, what are you afraid might happen from this situation?
I worry about the people in town. It's not their time.
What's their
Starfleet
Michael, I
uniforms.
just want to cut this quick here. What's your deal? You some sort
Like
of
Star Trek Starfleet?
eldritch sort of deity.
That's the only
What's-
thing that's
what-
coming to
what do you-
mind.
No, nothing quite so unseemly. I make sure
Just gonna
that
type this
they
into
move from
Google.
one side to the other seamlessly when it is
Oh,
Yeah,
their
like Star
time.
Trek.
Shit. Gandhi is not digging
Yeah.
this guy at all. He's death. He's like the boatman.
Shit.
Fuck a duck.
Now, those at home who may have studied theology will know that Michael is the name of the angel of death.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Archangel
so
of
that
Death.
works.
Yeah. Oh, wait a
Um,
minute. Gandhi goes in the corner of the church and barfs. Oh God. Oh God.
I'll clean that up later,
Oh.
I guess. Gandhi, it's not your time.
You vomited through me.
I know.
have nothing to
See,
fear
I didn't
from me.
really. I was more into Star Wars than
listen,
Star Trek.
My friend, it has.
I'm gonna
nothing
start
to do
drawing
with
it right
fear.
now, but
I
like,
hate
do you have any
Sorry.
opinions?
It's just, I can't. It's a compulsion.
To which colors?
Absolutely.
I know
I
Angus would be
understand.
one of the
Maybe
smart
perhaps, Gandhi, you
colors,
should begin
the
your
smart people
investigation on the
colors,
body,
and that would
see what you
be
can
the
derive.
Oh,
blue,
fine, yes,
if I
okay.
remember correctly.
Yeah, I'll
But
go
that's
over
all I
and
know about Star
check
Trek
out-
and whatever
buddy, this is
You
not
wanted
my-
to come here,
whatever
Clinton.
Futurama
This is
did
not
to
my
make fun of them.
wheelhouse.
You
This
said you
is
were
not-
anxious to get
You were
here.
you were
I
dying to come
was.
here.
But that's
I
really it.
was, but I didn't
that I know about
Death
Star
was gonna be
Trek.
hanging out.
Well, you knew there'd be a dead body. You can't be like, ooh, gross.
Well, a dead body's already dead.
I'm gonna do it very
Uh,
stylized
while-
because that's
before
what I
this or
usually
during
do
this
for
or whenever. I'm
the
not
Trey
picky.
horny boys.
Okay.
Seems even money that there be some hanging around.
I
And-
like this. Can we all take one action, right?
Start
if we're
with
like exploring
Magnus.
this place on I want to talk to Michael whenever
You
the
got
other
it.
two boys are done. Okay.
All right,
Who wants-
I'm gonna do mine first. So, hit the streets. I roll against what was it?
So
Okay,
you would
so I'm
be
rolling night.
Yeah.
That's ghost, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, cool. I got a 9 plus 2, so 11.
Okay. Let's see.
So to be more specific, I don't know what ghosts are here, but I'm kind of wanting to go out into the graveyard, look up some ghosts, so you see how I can scare up and see if they have saw anything.
Okay, so as you
Shoot.
kind of, I assume, well, you describe what do you do to commune with ghosts?
Let's try
I
again.
float out into the graveyard, and I extend my hands up into this air, and I say, "Are there any ghosts here?"
If
Good
so,
minute.
I want to do them.
And you feel a tap on your shoulder,
No, I don't. I can only
You
be
do.
seen and
but another
heard.
ghost could tap you right on that there shoulder.
You are fucking playing Calvin Ball with ghost rules, my man. But I'm into it. That's fine. You can put a little English on this ball if you like.
Well,
yes,
so,
I'm
I mean,
tapped
you
on the
can
shoulder
refute
by a
that.
ghost.
My assumption was when you're talking about seen, heard, or felt that was to the corporeal world. But does that apply
Yeah, but
to?
why? That would imply that the spectral plane has physics.
I
of
love
its
it, dude.
own.
That's that.
Okay,
That's
that's
that
fine. I'll
soul. That's
grant
that
it.
soul reaver shit. Let's
I'll grant it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I am tapped on the shoulder by a ghost.
Hi.
If
You,
only so someday I might be able to fight a ghost.
Yeah.
Season 2,
so,
Wesley.
yeah.
All right, I'll look that up
Uh,
after I
Need
draw
some help there, fella?
the boys.
Yes. What's your name? I'm Augustus Parsons. Pleasure from the Parsons Cashew Company.
Jonathan. Pleasure.
Sorry? Jonathan. Pleasure.
And you turn and you see
I don't wanna.
a man a little bit grizzled, but with a twinkle in his dead eyes, a warm smile, but an eye patch across one of said dead eyes. And yeah, other than that, pretty nondescript as things go. 5'8", fairly regular looking person. Is there something I can help you with, or
Jonathan, was it?
yeah?
Yes, I'm investigating the murder. Were you alive during to encounter any of the Blackwell family?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the Blackwell family. But I had to tell you, if you're looking for information, I've been here about 10 years, so I don't know how much help I could be.
Well, I understand that, but one of the
Next
Blackwells,
generation
Jeremiah,
rules.
was
So,
took a little.
I'm gonna wanna
poorly
pull
tonight,
that
by
up
which
on
I
my
mean he was
computer.
murdered. There was a blood trail leading this way to the church, and I was just curious if you had seen anything unusual tonight.
Well, I mean,
Oh, the one that I
honestly,
most know.
does
Okay.
explain
Got it.
a few things.
Go on, I'm all ears.
Well, I didn't know.
I actually
who it
do
was.
like
It
these
was just in
uniforms a lot.
passing. After you've been here a while, you get kind of attuned to things.
Sure.
I did feel, a kind of a spirit move from here to there, if you know what I mean. And the overwhelming feeling was, and you could see him kind of squirm, like he's trying to pin down that feeling in his body. I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I felt in the human way, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to
Of course.
confusion, betrayal. It wasn't you'd expect you expect anger, sadness, but this was just confusion.
So you're thinking maybe they weren't prepared for the attack, sort of came out of nowhere, perhaps, or they were confused by the assailant?
I mean, hard to pin down. Might be both. I didn't talk to the boy. I just felt. And all I know
and
is
you didn't see anything, perchance.
no. I mean, just Not from here. Just felt the spirit go.
All right. Well, Jonathan, I will let you return to your eternal slumber. I'm sorry to have disturbed you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's rare I get to talk to anybody, so...
Well, I gotta go. Thank you so much.
I don't like that.
All right,
That's
so let's
not a
cut
good
back
pose for
into... Who wants to go next, Errol or Candy?
Taco.
Candy, why don't you go?
Well, give me some advice here.
Ah.
If I'm investigating the body, if I'm checking out the body, I'm not sure which of the moves applies to that.
Well, so this
there's
is...
an investigate a place of power.
No, I can tell you what this is. So, in Power by the Apocalypse, and specifically, I don't know if this applies to Monster of the Week as well, there are certain things that, like, you can do. Like, I know that Gandhi has studied this. She is very learned. So this is not so much a move, so much as just a thing she's doing. So I can give you information. I don't think that this is a challenge you have to overcome so much as just this is like if you wanted to sit down and eat a sandwich, I wouldn't make you roll for that.
Yeah, but if you have any kind of like magical abilities that we want to enhance this investigation, that would be probably a move.
Yeah, I want Gandhi to look at the body and investigate the wounds.
Okay.
But you got to tell me what I see, Trev.
I will tell you what you see, for I am the master of ceremonies. So what you see is two like kind of cross sections, and because I can't think of a better way to describe it, like Wolverine's claws have been pulled across his gut.
I've solved it.
Okay, hold
on. And those wounds, though fairly razor sharp, very clearly went
He's
deep.
actually more triangles.
He bled out his
if I remember correctly.
Michael has
actually.
packed his internal organs back into the wounds, but he was eviscerated.
And then Merle.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that kind of does look like werewolf stuff, if I'm being honest. And that's not great for us, I don't think.
So do just a straight up and down investigation. What's your mind, Clint?
+2.
Okay, so do an investigation roll plus mind for me.
Okay. That would be 8 + 2, 10.
Great. So what you can see as you investigate past just kind of surface level is along kind of the edges of the wounds, there's some trace of like metal dust.
And you
some kind of
said
powder,
season 2 Wesley.
and it's it looks to be a mixture of silver and copper. It's hard to tell exactly which of the two it is. I mean, there's dirt in the wounds too, but there's definitely a glint to it.
I would like to take a sample of these scabs or whatever they are back to my sanctum sanctorum to do a little bit of checking, maybe getting to the bottom a little bit. I have an assistant there who might be able to tell me a little more.
Okay, so that's just so you know, if you go back to your sanctum, that's going to be like your beat for the next one. You know,
I'm cool.
I'm
with that.
seeing like two
Great.
things for
Can
Wesley,
for
and
the-
that's
for
like
the,
this all black uniform
essence
and
of,
a
like,
yellow
look,
uniform.
for efficiency of storytelling, can we just assume that if we derive information from any of these sort of little beats, that we have passed that information
Oop,
along
I
to
need
our
to
cohorts?
plug
just
in my
without,
phone.
like, reiterating everything.
and then so we go to Errol.
Yeah, I want to talk to Michael.
Absolutely.
I gotta plug in my
So,
phone real
you-
quick. Hold on.
You deal with the dead here in the Dry River, right?
Gotta get my charger.
Yes.
Be right back.
By definition, that is
I don't really know how it works. I don't know if you got some big hourglass or something counting everyone down. I haven't been at this very long, but I kind of understand this is, well, it's wet work that we're doing here. And before we go any further with this investigation, I think it'd be helpful to know, you got an idea of whose time's gonna run out tonight?
It's not quite that easy. I see stretched before me 3 different possibilities. And the problem is, if I were to give you any information about those 3, I would affect which 3 came to pass, and I am not permitted to do so. I can only discuss the present and the past with you. I'm
Phone
sorry,
is
Errol. I
plugged
want to
in,
help.
and I cracked
I want to
open
give
a
you
semi-cold
the
one
information that I can. It
with
saddens
the
me
boys.
to see Jeremiah here.
I will
it's a
work
bummer.
on him last
I
for
want
sure.
to
Got
try to
it.
persuade
All right.
just to ask one specific thing.
Go for it.
Yeah, persuade an angel.
Okay.
Should be easy.
Should be easy. No, should be no problem.
That's, okay. Are we? So I have a territory that I have named Carrion Street, which is kind of like the residential area of Dry River, and that's where I have like my cool bonuses and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I assume we are not in Carrion Street.
We are not.
That is a 7 minus 1. That's gonna be a 6. But I still want to ask the question, and you can tell me to fuck
Okay.
off.
Can you at least tell me, Michael, and how many of those 3 possibilities, how many of them does Dylan Mathis live through the night?
I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is in all 3 of them, you succeed.
Well, that's fucking great news. All right. Well,
Success, as you may well know, Errol, isn't always the outcome you expect.
well, don't take the wind out of my sails. You just gave me a nice little confidence boost there, Mike.
I will give you one more piece of information, but in exchange, I will need help from you in the future.
You want a dat?
Yeah, I'm the helpful sort. What do you got for me?
When I was cleaning the body, I couldn't find any trace of fur on him.
May have been one of those nude werewolves. Okay, that's great news, and it's also kind of confusing news. But I appreciate the help there. Keep a eye out for us. Say a little prayer, I guess. That might be
course.
weird. You are an angel. You'd be praying to yourself or something. But
That's
Oh,
not how
what side do I
prayer
put
works,
that
but
scar on?
I'll get right on it.
I am ashamed a bit because it's been a very long time since I've drawn these boys.
Hey everybody, this is Griffin McElroy. Your
And I
werewolf
know I
president,
have
your
a
best
certain
buddy,
design that I
and
like
thank
to
you
give
so
them.
much for listening to this episode of The
I think it's on
Adventure
this
Zone.
side.
I don't even know how we're numbering these anymore, but it's the first proper episode of The Adventure Zone Dust, and I hope that you're really enjoying it. I don't think me and Juice and Dad really knew what to expect from this arc, but this first episode was really cool to record, and we hope that you have enjoyed listening to it and will continue enjoying listening to the rest of the thing that Travis has made for all of us, because he's such a kind and giving boy. I have a few Jumbotrons to read in this episode here in the little commercial break. First one is I want to
And
tell
then I'm
you
gonna
all about
skip
Essential
this,
NPCs. You
'cause
can
I
find it at
usually do.
essentialnpcs.com or on
There we go.
So you now have one more beat in Midnight. Now, here you can separate into a group of 2 and 1, or all stay together.
Well, we'll need to do 2 and 1 for Gandhi to go back and do her research, yeah?
Yes.
And Gandhi wants to take the body with her. Is
Nope.
that possible? Okay, then
I should say,
All right, tell
in
me.
character, Michael would not allow that.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's not just me being like, no. Like, that is the only duty Michael has is to shepherd
Why is
people
there
as they
slamming
cross,
going on
and like that would go against everything.
All right, then I have
That's
something I want to do. I think it would
disconcerting.
be actually a magic spell. It's not
Ooh,
necessarily
a
one of
magic
my
spell. Go on.
wizard spells. Yeah, not Zone of Truth. Not gonna go there.
I mean, that's barely a spell.
Could I?
It's barely a spell.
No.
No. Okay. No. What I want to do is I want to take as much information back to my assistant, my homunculus. I had this idea of maybe that Gandhi would have these what are they? How do you pronounce it? Pince-nez, the little glasses that go on your nose. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I've never heard this word in my life.
You
Yeah, I
need
know
to
exactly
read.
what you're talking
You need to read
Pince-nez,
Poirot,
which
Griffin.
is pinch nose, that are actually an artifact that when she puts them on, they kind of take in data about what she's looking at, and then she can take that back to her assistant and have him analyze stuff and give her some ideas. Is that workable?
Dad, here's what I will give you because that was
Okay.
not one of the artifacts you wanted,
Right.
but just to kind of make transferring information a little easier,
No,
we're going to
that's
say
not
that
how I
those
do
are
it.
Michael's pince-nez that you can
Okay.
then put back on him when you return, and it just transfers everything you saw to him, and that will save
Okay.
us on exposition.
It's a homunculus flash drive.
Yeah. I was thinking more of like a homunculus GoPro, but
Yeah, sure.
Well, then I'll take that. I'll take that and some of the scabs from the wounds.
perfect.
Yuck.
You take a few scrapings and do a good sweep of the area. So Gandhi is going to head back to her her Tower of Power. What's it called?
Sanctum Sanctorum.
And what
The Black Mariah. The Black
the
Mariah.
Black Mariah. And what are Errol and Augustus going to do?
What do you think, Griff?
We could go talk to the Mathis matriarch, but seems like we should have our ducks in a row before we sort of confront her about her son's
That makes
potential
sense.
murder.
Makes sense to me.
He was killed outside the Sterling, right? Maybe somebody there saw something that could help us out.
Well, that's possible. I would worry, though, that Sterling, being a house of ill repute, might be more inclined to discretion than the patrons of the saloon.
Yeah, I mean, Full Moon Saloon, that's my folks there, so we might have a better chance of getting some actionable info there. So,
Indeed.
all right. Also, I'm thirsty as
That's
heck.
totally not
And
how
they
I
got
draw
root
it.
beer there that'll knock your socks off. It would probably fall right through you, which is a dang shame.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do the hair last. How about
give me
that?
a moment. Augustus is going to be heard and felt, but not seen.
Creepy.
Here's the
Hey,
thing.
I got a pick too, baby.
Yeah, Gus, you gotta warn me when you do stuff like that, pal. It is disconcerting to have somebody just vanish right in front of my
I
eyes.
feel like Magnus would totally
Augustus
rip the
is
sleeves off the uniform
Excellent.
as much as
I'm still here.
Oh, God. Let's resolve Gandhi
You know.
first. So, describe to me
this is
and our
a
listener,
sort of government type
inside
thing.
of your Sanctum Sanctorum.
It's a Black Mariah is what it was called. It's a very large, in this case, a very large one that the police used to use to collect prisoners.
Yes, but what does the inside look like? I want to know, is it like, like Tesla coils and Frankenstein,
What?
machines, or is it like
Do
potion?
you have a Frankenstein?
She calls it her library. It's part lab, part library. There are a lot of books. There are a lot of artifacts laying around. It's almost divided in two. There's like a main part full of books and artifacts, and then there's a secondary part that is laid out with like a table for doing work and for alchemy and for analysis and stuff. And there's a chute at the very front with some steps that the homunculus, who is also the carriage driver, can clamber up and down, and used in the TV show The Wild Wild West.
The only canonical Wild Wild West.
In my book, yes. And she has this assistant. I mentioned before the homunculus, but now since I have to change his name,
You don't have to change his name.
we're not going to have two Michaels in the show.
In the real world, people have the same name.
That's true, but this is not the real world.
People go to the bathroom and they have the same name.
I have a
This
nickname.
This just happened on Terrace House Boys X Girls Next Door, where another Tachon showed up at the house. There was already a Tachon at the house, so they called him OG. Which
Which means Prince, which is the
Prince.
most wild. I'm going to call you Prince now.
and he actually says like, I would prefer you not call me Prince. And then literally next scene, everyone is calling him Prince.
Well, Terrace House was my inspiration for this.
Good.
Actually,
The illegal fan sub Terrace House of Boys and Girls Next Door was Dad's inspiration.
She has this homunculus
Or is
that
it like a
is
full-on?
basically a homunculus is a doll.
It is a
or
full-on.
an artificial construction,
All right.
sometimes
All right.
possessed by something else. So she calls him Uncle Oni. He's about 2 feet tall. He's a Bunraku puppet. And Bunraku puppets are these elaborate, beautiful puppets that have been an art form in Japan for centuries and centuries. And this is possessed by a demon. And Uncle Oni is very powerful. And we already know that she has a debt to Uncle Oni. And that's who she goes to when she needs advice.
Is this something that you said in the setup episode that Gandhi was like a world traveler? Is this something that she picked up while like traveling in Japan, or?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, she has artifacts from all over that she's found as she is. And it was particularly interesting to her the fact that basically a demon, is alive after death. And so this is kind of one of the ways. Here you have a disembodied spirit placed back into a form that was very interesting to her.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting to pretty much anyone.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I would be fascinated by that.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to say,
Well, that doesn't look
you
right.
can ask 3 questions of Michael a day, right? So you can't just keep coming back here. This is what your debt to him. This is the arrangement that you made, or to Uncle Oni, excuse me.
Uncle Oni.
So you can come ask 3 questions, but once you've used those 3 questions, you're done for the day. And I think that those questions, Uncle Oni is going to have kind of final say as to how much information your debt has earned you. And I'm also going to put the limit on them that they're going to be who, what, where, when, and why questions.
So Gandhi walks
Hold on one
into
second.
the Black Mariah.
I
There
think
are
I'm
like
being
wards
yelled at.
and things that keep people out. She goes into the back part and calls out, Uncle Oni! Uncle Oni!
Yes?
Hello. And Uncle Oni visually has this sweet cherubic fat little face, but when Uncle Oni is in kill mode,
Yeah.
it switches to this really awesome mask.
This is a hostile action on your part, Dad.
Yeah,
This is
I
a
was
hostile
really-
action you're taking against me.
I've seen some pictures of some pretty scary looking puppets like this.
Do
Yeah.
you have a question for me, Gandhi?
Travis, what is this voice?
You know how sometimes you open your mouth and like a voice comes? I think that's the voice of the little like forest wizard character from, I've only seen on Mystery Science Theater 3000 of like Jack Frost. And there's a character and he turns the character into a bear because he like doesn't carry him. I can't remember, but that voice is always stuck with me.
I thought it was reminiscent of Coily from MST3K.
That's also there. No springs.
No spring.
Yeah, let's lean into Coily. I like that.
Okay. What can I do for you, Gandhi?
My family
Uncle Oni, I brought some
is going to
scabs
bed.
for you.
I didn't realize.
These
It was
are
like
from a
almost 10 o'clock.
wound, And I want to ask
I think-
one question. Today's
I'll
one
go
question.
until
What is this substance in the wound? What is this?
it's 9:40 now. I'll go
powdery-
until 10 o'clock.
Well,
Kenny,
excuse me,
I
my
will
glasses,
finish this
let me
for you
look.
because I am
I
enjoying
hand-
myself.
Uncle Oni his pince nez, and they look really cute on his little face. And pops them on and is like looking through them like there's some kind of VR kind of thing. And I also put the scabs down on one of the
Now,
tables.
Listen, I've watched enough police procedurals. I do need to correct you here. You wouldn't get scabs on a dead body. You get dried blood, and you would get powder. I just don't want anyone tweeting at you.
Yes.
Okay, William Peterson, here you go.
I'm
Here's
just
the dried
saying,
blood.
the dead bodies don't coagulate.
I need to know if Uncle Oni ever says enhance.
While looking at the blood. What is the? Let me see. Yes. This is refined, processed silver. It has been mined from the local mine. This is local silver dust
from the area.
Yes.
So it's both local and from the area.
Yes.
That narrows it down.
Andy, do you have any other questions?
Hi, I'm another puppet. Paddy Wagon that's just there to
No.
get on your nuts about stuff.
It's a ventriloquist dummy that just sits there. Okay. No, Uncle Oni, I'm going to save my other questions. You can dig right into the dried blood if you want.
If you'd like, I could just tell you who did it.
No, that takes all the fun out of it. You know me, I'm all about gathering information.
Okay, just know I'll be here if you want to exchange me any more of your soul. I can just
I know.
tell you.
No, I'll hold off. Getting rid of my soul, I'm not quite prepared for that, and I'm getting a little nauseous just thinking about it. But may I wear your pince-nez again?
Of course, do come back and see me.
And let me tell you one thing. This situation is extremely dangerous, and I know we've been through some dangerous times before. For those of you who don't remember the prequel, Candy Dancer and Uncle Oni in the pits of despair. So be prepared, be ready. This is a very hostile situation. I would hate to see anything happen to my Sanctum Sanctorum.
Oh, I will protect it, and what will you give me?
Well, I actually was concerned about you, so that's the only reason I suggested.
If I lose this form, I just find another.
Not without my help, you don't.
Oh, the hubris.
Oh, the hubris.
I will look forward to being free from this body.
Go ahead. Hope springs eternal.
We shall see.
Can we do another scene, or you guys gonna just keep dropping one line?
So, let's move on to Errol and Augustus. You are heading to the Full Moon Saloon. Is that what you've said?
Right.
When you arrive at the Full Moon Saloon, it is now, let's say about 12:30, and it's a school night, so there's not a lot of people there. You see the bartender, Wilder, an older fur. He's gone gray. He has a gray beard, long but well kept. The bar is clean. He is well dressed, aged, but still clearly he could kick your ass if he needed to. At least you, Errol. Maybe not Augustus. Are you corporeal at this second? Are you touchable?
We've covered this.
Okay.
I'm corporeal, but I'm invisible, basically.
Got it. So, until you speak, and let's make sure we keep this in mind, until you speak, it's possible that no one knows you're there.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And also sitting at this bar, there are two women. They are not sitting together. They are fairly far apart. It's clear that they are not with each other. But one you recognize as your employer, Abigail Mathis.
Shit. Okay.
I'm going to float over to Abigail Mathis. Not float, I guess slowly walk. Within earshot.
Okay.
Yeah, are they having a conversation when we walk in, or is she just kind of drowning her sorrows right now?
Well, she is both drinking but also waiting. I think she kind of expected you sooner.
I walk up to the bar and sit down at the stool next to her, and I say,
time.
No need to take the Lord's name in vain, Abigail.
We're out here, busting our humps, trying to find out what we can find out.
My son has been locked in that cage for almost an hour. You better be close to solving this goddamn thing.
Wheels of Justice turn pretty slow, and that root beer is... Listen, Abigail, here's what we know. Your son's covered in blood, and we found out that it is Jeremiah's blood. And he's got claw marks across his gut, and we can't just release your son. He's the most likely suspect still. So I know you're frustrated and everything,
My
but
son would not do this. He is a good boy. He would not have done this.
he's a good boy, but he's a shit suspect. He wouldn't really tell us much when we were in there talking to him.
He always has been quiet.
Yeah, that's, again, and not super helpful. And again, that root beer, though, is it What do? You brewing the sarsaparilla back there? What's the
Wilder just
what's-
kind of glares at you and continues polishing cups.
What's you got beef, bud?
Wilder watches as one of the mugs floats over to the root beer and begins to fill itself.
I'm
And
doing
then
that with my
is-
mind.
Is placed in front of.
Wilder reaches
front of Errol.
underneath the counter, pulls out a club with a silver tip, and you can see engraved upon it is the symbol of the church. And he points
You
it.
see the mug start to float back over and upend itself, and then it goes over to the sink and is washed and is placed back in its place.
Show yourself, ghost.
First off, I have a name. And I materialize in front of him.
What to?
So I can
What-
be seen and heard, but not felt.
That's a good call in this situation.
We didn't come for any trouble, my goodman. We are here to investigate a terrible crime and to free one of your lupine brethren from the shackles of injustice. We just need a moment of your time, and we'll be on our way.
In fact, I'm going to say he sounds like this. Get behind my bar again, and you won't be walking out. Or
Well,
should I say floating out? And he kind of like gives you a bit of a smile glare. He smiles, but not with his eyes.
There he is. There he is. He's smizing.
He's
I
amazing.
appreciate the concessions made to my phantasmagoric nature. Not the threat, but I do appreciate that you recognize I am a ghost.
All right, I'm going to give up on Operation Root Beer. Abigail, listen, when we were talking to Dylan,
Now, I've almost got it cracked.
I'm sorry, I'm really bad at sideburns. This is
when we were talking to Dylan, he's
not my
mentioned
best
something
work.
about
Actually, don't
her
sideburns like
not wanting to.
go down
not wanting to
here?
talk.
Now that I'm thinking about it.
Just curious if you know who that might be.
I can tell you, there's only one her Dylan cares about, and it's his sister.
Let me add that to the old clue book. What's the deal there? They close?
They are twins from the same litter,
What's her name?
Anne.
Where might we find Anne here at this late hour?
Probably still asleep back at my house.
Well, I may need you to go wake her up and get
Is that a knock on my
her here
door?
in town because we
Hello?
got to ask her some questions.
Do it yourself. And she
Nope.
slides you the
Okay.
key. I need to be here, center of town, in case something happens. I'm not leaving my boy.
That's
Abigail,
better.
I feel like maybe you don't really understand the situation that we find ourselves in.
You see the back of Abigail's arms start to get a little hairier. Her nails start to grow. And she turns and glares at you and says, "No, I don't think you understand, Errol. I am not leaving my boy. He is next in line to take over my place. I am not leaving him alone. Do you understand me, Errol?"
Yeah, I understand. You don't want to lose your boy. But things go south here. You're going to lose a lot more than that. The gravity of the situation is this, and I'm surprised because I would think somebody who's been living around the mines for as long as you have would know a powder keg when you saw one. This town's about to blow up, and we're trying to stop it. We're on the same side here. We're just asking for a little bit of help.
You stop it. I'm Plan B.
Probably seems pointless to start the next episode. So, what I'm going to do is. Maximum Fun Network.
some good video game music for the end of this stream. It's loud for me. Is it loud for you guys? Yeah, it could be brought down a little bit. There we go. Oh, Lord help me. I'm not good at this kind of stuff. That's kind of even. Oof. It's fine, Kenny. I'm gonna stop pretty much now. I do want to continue this because I'm honestly enjoying myself with this one a lot. So like I said, these are requests, so it's good. I'll talk to you later. I still got like 4 minutes for the rest of everybody else if there's other people. You too, Kenny. Oops. That's the one thing about these graphic monitor tablets. You don't know how hard you're pressing or like how close you are to other things because like your hand is in the way, kind of. Oh, 10 o'clock. Alright. Alright, guys. Thank you so much for coming by. I want to make, streams more on a weekly basis. Maybe bi-weekly. As in, like, twice a week. Not all of them will be request streams. I got a lot going on in the background. It'll probably be like comic streams because I am doing a comic. Just project streams in general, or just random doodling. I'm gonna figure that out, and once I do, I'll post it like to Twitter or to like Instagram or something, wherever you came from. But thank you so much for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate it. And I guess I'll see you guys later.